It's Thursday. It's February some date. It's day 14,000 of trial, and I am exhausted. This trial is exhausting. It is so difficult to follow. So if you are saying, I don't know a lot about the law and I'm having a hard time following this case, it's not you. This case is so difficult to follow, and it's not you. The attorneys are not making this case clear or easy, and it's going to be a problem for the jury. It's going to be a big problem for the jury. Unless this jury is just like, whatever, fuck Alec Murdaugh, we don't care. Or like, how dare the state do this? Depending on the attitude of the jury, it might not matter. We'll see in closing, but the prosecution needs to wrap this up before closing. They need to start connecting the dots before we get to closing. If they wait till closing, they've lost. If we're still going, I have a million questions. How is this happening? What happened? What is the timeline? If we're still there when the prosecution rests their case in chief, I don't know if the prosecution can come back from that. So I'm just. Closing was supposed to be tomorrow. It's sure not going to be. I think we have at least another week, if not two. And I'm terrified that we have another week or two. Terrified. I don't know what we're going to do, but the defense has a case. So here's where we're at. Prosecution has their case in chief. Then the defense has their case in chief. Then, oh, the judge is just walking back onto the bench. Then the prosecution has their case in chief. All right, that feed hasn't switched over yet. So we're going to go back to court. And then the prosecution gets rebuttal witnesses.
The jury comes in. Yes, sir.
Oh, God, what?
Please, court, Your Honor. Mr. Waters has informed me that he is going to call a young man named Satterfield.
Yes.
Who was the one of the heirs of the Satterfield.
Are they going to try to stipulate?
Allegation is,
I would stipulate.
Is that
Alex stole from.
Converted those proceeds as, like all the other conversions we've heard about. The difference is,
Cumulative, prejudicial.
in this case, he is the victim, and you know.
It's really
Mr.
prejudicial,
Waters
Your
used the
Honor.
term gilding the lily the other day. He told us it meant piling on. Under the 403 analysis,
In law, that's called
and
cumulative.
again, this is being allowed for the limited purpose of motive. We believe and would submit to the court that this is more prejudicial than it is probative. They've got records they put in of millions of dollars of theft, and
Maybe that's why they let them do it, to keep this out.
That if he has some summary
Smart.
chart, or we would, pursuant to our previous objections, stipulate to it as to the loss involved in this case, for purposes of what Your Honor's already allowed, with the
Smart.
obviously that stipulation be subject to our previous objections, rather than calling, you know, witnesses who are victims that add nothing to the evidence
that was my
Your
chair.
Honor's allowed, and we would under
Smart.
Rule 403 object to the prejudicial being more
This is smart. Just
outweighed, the prejudicials outweighed by any probative value.
this is a smart defense strategy.
No, yes, sir. Mr. Waters?
Your Honor, again, Mr. Satterfield testified in camera. There has already been testimony admitted again about him stealing through the fake forge from his clients, stealing from his law firm. But this is something different. This is where a situation where he was actually a
I got you,
civil
Chad.
defendant and still managed to misappropriate that money as well. And additionally, the amount of money is extremely significant. It's millions of dollars. And the other thing about this is that, as you heard from Mr. Satterfield, you know, the fact of this being out there was
Yes,
kind
I'll
of
talk about it in a
percolating
minute.
out in the world, and he
There were
had
smart things.
conversations with Mr. Murdaugh as time was approaching, and Mr. Murdaugh's telling him, oh, everything's okay with the case and all the rest of it, when the money had long been misappropriated and spent by Mr. Murdaugh. So this is a different type, and it also has a connection with the overriding situation that Mr. Murdaugh found himself in. And so we believe that it still is fair game and is not its probative value is not substantially outweighed by the danger of any
Dick
unfair
is speaking our
prejudice.
love language by asking for
What
a
is the
summary chart.
timeline with regard to Satterfield?
Thank you, Your Honor.
So, Mr. Satterfield, as far as the
It's
communications
cumulative.
with the defendant, the
He might
money,
keep it out.
actually, the first settlement, I
might
believe,
keep it
was
out.
misappropriated not long after the boat case.
Creighton, you did this
in,
to yourself,
March of 19.
buddy.
This is actually another aspect that's going on as well. There's been testimony about how the boat case changed things and created some very significant difficulties for the defendant that was coming to a head at that time. The subsequent recovery, which was much larger, of about $3.8 million, was at some point after that. However, there are, in fact, communications, and you heard from Mr. Satterfield, there are communications, text messages, which I
Creighton's
provided
not
to the
answering the
defense,
question, Chad.
in April of 2021.
He's sure
in
not.
which the defendant is assuring him that everything, they're working hard on the case and everything is fine and all the rest of it. And so that is, again, this is part and parcel of the things that are in these hidden aspects of this whole other life that the defendant had that are percolating as everyone moves to June of 2021. Additionally, there are calls. I think Mr. Satterfield testified as to calls in June of 2021. The records reflect some calls on June 22nd between the two of them, but there still are text messages.
Y'all, I have so many
from
thoughts.
the defendant. Your Honor, I can have something marked at this time and pass it up if you'd like to see it. These actually were identified after he testified last time, but the defendant reaches out to him and tells him, hey, just checking on you, everything's fine, we're working hard on the case, it's a tough case, it's a complex case, and therefore, don't worry about it, when, again, the money had been long misappropriated.
Long answer, but not to the question. So what is the timeline, and perhaps the
Long answer, but not to the
perhaps
question.
the text messages have something to do with the timeline?
Yes, Your Honor.
I recalled his testimony.
He said, what is the timeline?
Satterfield's in-camera testimony, something to the effect that in early June or around that time.
Diverted in May of 2019.
Yeah, the discovery is what the discovery.
Did not come until
June 22nd.
Creighton walked into this, and the judge,
Satterfield testified that he
the judge
heard
might keep this
reports at some point in time. That's my question to you, the
He
timeline.
testified that as we move into
Don't
2021,
cut off the judge.
2021, he's hearing reports, and there are reports out there that there had been a settlement in the case. And so ultimately, there's discussions with Alec Murdaugh, which he'll testify he would, talk with a few times a year about the case, and was assured, even though, yes, Mr. Harpootlian's right, that money had been
Danger,
misappropriated a long
danger,
time ago,
Creighton,
that everything
danger.
was okay, he was working hard on the case.
You're losing
and
this.
So the fact of the important point to this case is that issue for the defendant is still out there, and he's got this young man, as we move into the spring of 2021.
They need to argue it's
believing that the case
cumulative.
is still ongoing and he's still working on it. And that's the connection here as part and parcel of the overwhelming set of circumstances for the defendant.
Your Honor,
It's
just
unduly
briefly,
burdensome and overly
money
cumulative.
is misappropriated in
Those are the buzzwords.
2019. That young man testified he didn't know when he learned about it may have been a settlement, could have been before June 7th or after June 7th. And the fact that he doesn't know when, I think, contributes to the fact that it calls for speculation that he knew something or that would have, in some way, would
They
have
do
influenced
so much better at arguing
Alec
motions than they
Murdaugh
do at actually
to murder
conducting
his
testimony.
wife and son.
They're all very
And
good at
that's what-
arguing
The only
motions.
reason this testimony is coming in
Put a witness
is
up
to
there and it
show
falls apart.
with some immediacy. And by the way,
It's a good argument.
if you look at the phone records, the only calls between these folks began on June 22nd, 2 weeks after the murders. So it's not temporal, and he can't say whether he had any knowledge.
The word is
of
cumulative.
the misappropriation of actually, all he know about would be the settlement. That again, there was nothing immediate about this on June 7th.
Oh, There are
from
100%
this
passing notes,
particular
but that's not
witness. Now, again,
inappropriate.
we'd be more than willing to some sort of stipulation that that's the timeline, subject to our previous objections, rather than putting a witness up.
Of course he wants
who's
to
going to
stipulate.
testify. He doesn't know when he found out about it. Could have been before June 7th, could have been after. And they don't even begin phone calls about it till June 22nd. And there's nothing no action's begun, nothing coming forward after or prior to June 22nd. And these emails all occur after June 7th. So, again, this is a prejudicial versus probative.
Cumulative.
And-
It's
and,
it's fucking
This
cumulative.
is gilding the lily. This
That's
is
the word you're looking
piling on.
for.
This is just more trying to prejudice the jury into believing that somehow someone who steals a
He's
bunch of
not
money in any
cumulative.
way whatsoever would commit a murder. This is character evidence, pure and simple.
No, it's not. It's cumulative.
Actually, the final misappropriation in the Satterfield case was in October of 2020. And again, there were press articles out there. The texts, he said these emails were after June 7th, and they're not. They're in April. Mr. Satterfield testified in camera that he remembered having a conversation in June of 2022. After that, we actually looked and we found some phone records, which again are June 22nd of 2021, but we also found these text messages from April in which the defendant is reaching out to Mr. Satterfield and assuring him that he's working hard on the case and all the rest of it. And again, that's part and parcel of the things that were percolating out there.
I want to talk about the strategy.
and part and
Creighton,
parcel of the
you've already
pressures
said
that were
this.
on
Can you
him that,
speed it up
the
so we
state's
can
theory
talk?
is he could not solve.
Your Honor, just one last point. This all began with this idea, argued
Oh,
very
we've heard it.
thoroughly by
We've heard
the
it.
Attorney General. All this financial
Ludicrous
stuff
theory.
is to prove that on the night of June 7th, he knew, because of that conversation in the office, that the jig was up, that he, in a day or two, that hearing on Thursday, everyone would know that he was a thief and everything had crashed down on him. And to distract from
Correct.
that and delay
He
things.
did not know at the time of the
He went
murders.
home and
It
butchered
came out
his son
because of
and
the
butchered his
murders.
wife. And by the way, I might point out, that same day he learned his father was terminal and wouldn't live much longer. And that would be, in my opinion, as much of, if not more, well, enough of a distraction. I agree. For
Alec already admitted to the Satterfield theft.
that.
Alec already admitted to the Satterfield
That
theft.
he didn't need, I mean, there's no rational way he would think he'd need to butcher his wife and son to distract, knowing his father's getting ready to die, which would be a distraction in that community, in that law firm. So again, I think we need to get back to why we began this
Murder trial?
3 or 4 or 5, I can't remember how many days we've been doing financial. I mean,
It wasn't 5
This is a murder trial,
days.
not a financial fraud trial. And to the extent it goes to motive, again, we're more than willing to stipulate that this amount of money disappeared.
No.
That the
They want to
rightful
stipulate because it's a live victim, that's
heirs
why.
of it, receipt of it, didn't get it. But
We'll
putting
get-
a
we'll
child
get there. We'll get there.
on a stand.
We'll get there.
To talk about, and again, he didn't know when he found out about it, or when he began to raise those issues.
I believe he's an adult, isn't he?
He is an adult, he has a job in an emergency room as a tech.
I apologize to the young man. He looks young to me, I'm sorry.
Anything further?
Your Honor, the only thing I would say is that the state's theory isn't as simple as that. It's broader than that. But again, I think that this is a different category, and it's part and parcel of everything that was going on as we moved to June 7th, and therefore is relevant for the jury to understand very much as the pressures that could cause him to murder his wife and son.
The judge needs to cut
particularly
them
in
off.
the
They're just
face
repeating
of
themselves.
The defense contention that he could never do such a thing.
Here's where we're at. The defense is doing everything they can to keep Gloria Satterfield's son off of the stand.
Satterfield testified in camera that in June of 2021, he made a call to Mr. Murdaugh asking about the status of the case. He made that call, he testified to, because he had heard reports that
Mandy Matney's
that there was
reporting.
some concern about the status of the case sufficient to call him to cause him to call Mr. Murdaugh to ask about the status of it. And he testified that he could not remember if he called Mr. Murdaugh or if Mr. Murdaugh called him. But yes, I talked to him in June of 2021. That's according to the rough draft of the transcript that has been provided to the court. I find that this testimony is consistent with the state's theory of Mr.
They
of the
didn't
defendant
argue, it was cumulative.
being in a frantic state, seeking to avoid disclosure of these financial crimes and thefts, and that this testimony is consistent with the state's theory. The court has
Oh, he's gonna let it in.
granted
Okay.
the state's motion to allow evidence of other crimes, and this is additional evidence that
they
that is
didn't
close
argue.
in point in time and
It was
is
cumulative.
admissible, and I deny the motion to exclude it. Yes, sir.
Bring to your attention one factual issue. The Attorney General has,
Of course, I asked, is there anything else, but go ahead.
You should have waited.
I'm trying to hurry if I can because, there may be an ending to this case someday, but I'm not trying to delay it. The phone records the Attorney General
There
can
may be
present
an
to
ending
this
to this
witness
someday, he said.
indicate the only calls between the two of them were on June
That's funny.
22nd, 2 weeks after the murder.
It's a good argument.
So if there's some
Cross-examine him
phone
about
call,
it.
there's no mystery about when the phone call came. After June 7th, 2 weeks later.
Cross-examine him about
So,
it.
in terms of him putting Mr. Murdaugh on alert that something imminent was going to happen, it's 2 weeks later.
That's for your
It's
cross.
impossible for anyone to know what's on one's mind or state of mind at any given point in time. But the magnitude of this case almost morphs all the others in the amount, and it is something that I would, if one is being concerned and attempting to prevent disclosure,
coming in.
and seeking to divert attention from the impending disclosure of information, and that disclosure would likely have taken place not only for some of the others that we've had testimony concerning, but most definitely this particular one. So I understand your objection. That's a fact and issue, but I find that it's more probative than prejudicial.
Fact issues are for
all
the jury
of
to
reasons I
determine.
previously explained. Yes, sir.
You should have argued it was cumulative.
And I don't think whether it's June 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 20th, 21st, 25th, I don't think it's of any significant difference.
It is for the jury
Your Honor, you said
to
just a
decide.
moment ago, and if you charge a jury with this, maybe I'll sit down, which is, no one knows what's going on in somebody's mind. And maybe
It's in the
that's
jury
something to tell the
instructions,
jury at
Dick.
the end of this case.
Stop it.
Secondly, since this is
Specific charge on that, intent. Right.
moving on.
Sit down.
We would ask two things. One, I
Judge
would
is gonna
accept your ruling. I'm
bite
not
your
sure I
head.
have to do that, but I'm from the old school. If you didn't preserve it,
Yes, sir, I
it was
understand.
gone. Secondly, we would ask you
It's
to.
not old school, that's
and
rules of
I know you
evidence.
said yesterday you weren't going to do this again, but this is, as he's just pointed out, a horse of a different color. It's a different character kind.
He never
kind
said horse of a
witness. I would
different
ask
color.
you to read your charge on this testimony once again. And hopefully, I think that.
They
we're
know
close to
this
the
is
end of
damaging
this financial
testimony and they're
testimony,
afraid of it.
So it may be the last time I would request you to read it.
No.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Obviously, leave that to the court's discretion.
Yes, sir, I have it right here. I will give it one more time.
They're going to give it, and it's going to signal to the judge that this is a big
Bring
deal.
the jury.
Bring the jury. We're going to bring the law nerds real quick, and then I'm going to explain what just happened. But we got to bring the law nerds in. Law Nerds, welcome. Don't forget to do the subscribing thing.
Hey there, I'm Emily D. Baker, the internet's go-to legal analyst, breaking down the legal side of the pop culture and entertainment stories we can't stop talking about. I'm a big fan of the cursey words. I've been a licensed attorney for over 17 years, but this is not legal advice. This is where the law nerds unite to talk about facts, not. Let's get into it.
All right. While we're waiting for the court to bring the jury, here's what the defense did. The defense held their cards. And the reason I got excited is because I could finally see the strategy. I've been like, can we see the strategy? Here's the strategy that we saw with the defense. They know that having a live victim on the stand, not another lawyer that was stolen from, not the
Sir,
financial
thank
crimes.
you. Welcome back. Once again, ladies and gentlemen,
is the same
state's
charge.
next witness
This is the same charge we've heard.
is expected to
But having a victim on the stand
further testimony
shows
regarding
how
other crimes,
cold Alec Murdaugh could be, and that's damaging to him. So the defense waited to object and said, we'll stipulate to it, we'll agree to it. Do not let them hear from this victim on the stand because it's so impactful.
fact
You
that
can
the
see
defendant may or may
who
not have been
he's
involved
stealing
in other
from. You can see who he has hurt.
is not evidence of or
So
proof
they're
that he
giving the limiting
committed the
instruction
offenses
again because the
alleged
defense knows how damaging this is.
indictments against him.
But the defense held their objections to this, but then they
testimony is
didn't
allowed
object to
for the limited
cumulative.
purpose of
It's like, Your Honor, we've been over this, we've been over this,
assisting
we've been over this. So they let all the checks in, they let all the other bullshit in to try to block this witness. And that is part of the chess game. It did not work. This brings it home. Seeing a victim who was stolen from is very different than hearing about it. This young man's mother died working for Alec Murdaugh on the Moselle property, and then he stole from them. That is a very, very different thing than hearing from the CFO of the law firm saying, because he stole it over and over and over again. This impacts juries. These witnesses impact juries. So it's going to be very interesting to see. But the defense played a smart strategy, holding on, not objecting, letting it all in
Tony Satterfield.
to try to block this witness. A smart play, but it didn't work. And there's room to argue this on appeal if he's convicted, because they're saying there's no pressure cooker because he didn't start talking about it till after the murders. Actually, the defense can argue the murders are what unraveled this, because I think the murders did unravel this. But it shows what he's capable of, but they're saying you can't limit it to character, but I don't know if the jury will see it that way.
My name is Michael Satterfield. My last name is spelled
nervous.
Satterfield.
Poor thing.
Mr. Satterfield, how you doing today?
Good, how are you?
Good. Tell the jury just
Creighton,
a little bit
slow
about
down.
yourself. Where'd you grow up, and what do you do for a living?
I grew up in Hampton, live in Beaufort, and I work at Beaufort Memorial Hospital.
Awesome. And court reporter's taking stuff down there. I'm really known for talking fast too, but let's slow it down so they can get everything.
He has
down.
testified at the
You
404.
grew up in Hampton, you said,
Yes,
and
He's not testified
you
here.
said where'd you work?
Beaufort Memorial,
Okay. And what do you do there?
work in the ER.
How long have you been working there?
A little over 5 years.
I've worked
And
in
where-
ERs.
Did you work anywhere prior to that?
I did.
It's a whole
Where'd you
thing.
work?
The pharmacy.
Pharmacy. Who's your mom?
Gloria Satterfield.
Gloria Satterfield. And is your mom still with us?
She's not.
And when did she pass?
February 26, 2018.
And do you have a sibling?
I do.
And what's his name?
Brian.
Where'd your mom pass?
In the hospital.
Did something happen to her?
Yes.
Look,
Tell the
he's
jury
not
what happened
leading.
to her.
She had a trip and fall.
Where?
When did that occur?
I'm not sure the exact date that occurred.
But where?
I'm sorry. At Moselle in Colleton County.
Okay. Was she working for the Murdaugh family?
She was.
And what did she do for them?
She was their housekeeper, babysat for them, and anything else they needed.
Babysat, whatever they needed?
Yes.
Housekeeper? How long did she work for them?
A little over 20 years. I'm not sure the exact amount.
20 years. During that time, did you get to know the Murdaugh family?
I did.
Did you get to know the defendant, Alec Murdaugh?
I did.
Do you see him here in the courtroom today?
I do.
This
Can you point
witness,
him out to the jury-
this
for the
witness
jury?
breaks my heart.
Can the record reflect he's identified the defendant? Your mom worked for this family for 20 years,
Did the record reflect
babysitting.
it?
She helped raise the children.
Yes.
Did you get to know Maggie?
A little bit, yes.
Did you get to know Paul or Buster at all?
A little bit, yes.
And you got to know Alec? right?
Yes.
Look, Creighton knows how to not lead. We're learning that.
You said
This
your
is in
mom
front
had
of the
a triple
jury,
fall
so
at
it's
Moselle
different.
at their property?
Yes.
And
I think this witness is trying to get through
she go to
this
the hospital?
as best he
Yes.
can.
Was she ever able to tell you how she tripped or anything like that?
No.
How long was she in the hospital before she passed away?
Give and take 4, 5 weeks, somewhere up in there.
After she passed away, did you, was there a funeral?
Yes.
And after the funeral, did people go to somebody's house and visit like people do?
Yes.
At any point in time during that funeral or thereabouts, did you have a conversation with the defendant over there?
Yes.
And what,
Leading.
Objecting to questions by Mr. Water that respond with a yes or no. Those are typically leading questions. Not that I'm concerned about these
Dick!
questions, I just don't want my lack of objection
Oh, my
to
God.
lead to somebody's belief that he can ask questions that respond with a yes or no.
Mr. Waters?
I think my question did not suggest the answer. It said, did
They
you have a
didn't suggest the
conversation? And my next
answer.
question was, what was that conversation?
It can be yes or no if it doesn't suggest the answer.
So what was that question, what was that conversation you
Just say
had with the
leading,
defendant at the funeral
We
or
don't need a
thereabouts?
fucking soliloquy.
If I remember correctly, I'm gonna kind of take care of you boys and kind of, you know,
He's going to do what? I'm sorry?
take care of you boys.
Did he say how he was going to do that?
Partially, yes.
And what did he say?
He was gonna file a claim against his insurance company.
He's going to what?
File a claim against his insurance company.
His insurance company?
Yes.
Dick also uses objections to distract the jury
he
from
say
damaging testimony.
how
Just keep
much-
an eye on that.
Coverage there was?
Like 505,000, I believe.
505,000?
Yes.
And did he say anything about how much money you may receive?
The goal was to get me and my brother Brian at least $100,000 apiece.
And did any other bills need to be taken care of?
The medical bills.
For who?
My mom.
When he told you that, did you agree to do that?
Yes.
Did you view the defendant as your lawyer?
Yes.
Did you go and meet with him about it?
Yes.
These are not
Did he tell you
leading.
about what to
They
do with
don't
any
suggest
paperwork you
the
may
answer.
receive?
Any paperwork or
They're
bills or
concise.
anything, just send them to him.
We will get to how much was actually taken in that settlement. But the insinuation that Alec's going to sue himself is completely improper. They won't get into the weeds on that, I fucking hope.
No objection subject to our previously made objection.
All right. Is that something you're offering into evidence?
I'm going to show it to the witness, but yes, sir. Yeah, I'll offer States 372 in evidence.
He needs the foundation first, that's why he was going to show it to the
Submitted without
witness.
objection.
But okay.
Let me ask you this, so did you agree to let the defendant go forward with this claim?
Yes.
And I'd asked you whether or not, what he told you to do about paperwork, and I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit 372 to your testimony. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
Tell the jury what that is, please.
This is a cover sheet that I sent him with, I believe behind it was like a hospital bill and some kind of other important paperwork.
Okay. So you had received some paperwork in the mail?
Yes,
And did you handwrite this?
I did.
All right. And who did you send this to?
Alex Murdaugh.
Put it up on the screen.
I just, they're trying to use it for motive. They should be allowed to use this for character, but the prosecution
Tell us
allowed the
very
limiting
quickly what this
instruction
is
on
about.
character.
Can you see it on the
They're
screen?
probably
I can
going to
bring
try to
back
argue it
you.
at closing and get objected
So
to.
this is a cover sheet that I attached to the documents that I sent Alex.
And what kind of documents? Do you remember what kind they were?
One was a hospital bill, and one was from the trailer company, I believe. I don't recall exactly what it was.
The trailer company for who?
My mom.
For your mom? And the hospital bill for who?
Yes, my mom.
Your mom? Okay. And you sent these to him because they were relevant to the case?
Yes.
At any point in time, did you, as this case was developing, did you go and meet with the defendant at his office?
Yes.
Did he have any paperwork for you?
Yes.
Did he get you to sign some paperwork?
Yes.
Did you become the personal representative of your mom's estate?
I did.
And who
This
gave
is
you the
why
paperwork
the
to sign
defense
for that?
wanted to
Alex?
keep it out, because it is different.
When you signed that paperwork, were you aware that there had already been a...
Your Honor, leading.
Can't lead the witness.
That was leading.
At some point in time, did Alex say he wanted to involve another lawyer?
Yes.
And who was that?
Corey Fleming.
And what did he tell you about that?
If I understood it correctly, I'm going to send you to Corey Fleming, my friend, because I can't do it against, do the claim against myself because it'd be a conflict of interest. That's how I understood it.
And did you ultimately meet with Corey Fleming?
Yes.
How many times did you meet with him?
If I recall correctly, maybe once or twice.
Over the course of this case, if you had a question, who would you call?
Alex.
This witness has testified before, but it was outside the
At some
presence of the
point, did the
jury.
defendant, Alec, have a conversation with you about
So
letting
this is in
someone else
front
be
of the
PR?
jury.
Yes.
And what was that conversation?
That I should let somebody else be PR because based on he's a businessman and it would be hard for the insurance to go up against somebody like that.
Okay. And who told you that?
Personal
Alex.
representative.
And what did you say to that?
Yes.
And
Why?
did somebody else get involved
Why?
at this point?
Why
Yes.
did you say
And
yes?
who was that?
The PR, Chad Wessendorf.
Why did you
At
say
that point in
yes?
time, did you sign any paperwork for him
Creighton,
to become PR?
I
Chad?
did.
he said yes
And who
because
brought
he
you that
trusted him,
paperwork?
and that would be his
I believe I
answer.
signed it at Alex's office or either I went to the bank. I can't recall.
And he thought they knew better.
And at that point in time, were you aware of any recovery in the case?
No.
Were you aware a recovery had already been received in the case?
No.
It should have been, were you aware?
Did anyone at that
if a
time tell
recovery
you there was already
received or not?
$505,000 that had been recovered?
No.
That's not
Leading.
in evidence. I mean, he's just throwing these numbers and times out.
Your
There's
Honor,
nothing in the record to indicate when.
That's a
it was
talking
received
objection, Dick. What are the
or
legal
how it was
grounds?
dispersed. I object.
I asked him,
On what grounds do you object, Dick?
asked him if he was aware
Assumes
of that.
facts, not in evidence?
I think that's relevant.
Relevancy wasn't the
Aware of
objection.
something that no one's said.
Oh, my
happened.
God.
I mean, I would object.
Rephrase your question, please.
You would object on what legal grounds? Assumes facts not in evidence would be the legal grounds, not the, Your Honor, none of this is in the evidence, but notice that Dick will object like that to distract the question.
$505,000 already in the case at that time.
No.
Did he ever tell you there had been a recovery of $505,000 at that time?
No.
Dick will distract.
Was there a recovery at that
damaging
time of
testimony.
$505,000 as you come to find out?
Later on.
Later on you found out?
Yes.
And did he ever pay you one dime?
No.
Who was the PR that the defendant talked to you about appointing instead of you?
Chad Wessendorf.
Did you ever meet with him?
Yes, like once or twice.
Did he ever tell you about a $505,000 settlement that already had occurred?
No.
Did the defendant ever tell you that he also had a $5 million umbrella policy?
No.
That's leading.
Did he ever tell you
I
that
think that
there had been a
assumes facts,
recovery
not
against
evidence.
that?
No.
I think that assumes
Did
facts
he ever
not in
tell you that there had
evidence.
been a recovery for $3.8 million against that?
No.
Did he ever pay you one penny of $3.8 million?
That all
No.
assumes facts, not evidence. But okay. The Satterfield boys are now represented by
As the
Eric
months
Land.
went on and moving into the early part of
And
June
there's been a
2021,
settlement.
would you periodically have conversations with Alec about the case?
Yes.
How often do you think you would talk to Alec?
Every 3 to 4 months, give and take.
And you recall what Alec would tell you about the case?
Yes, first it started off, the hard case, and then it was making progress.
Say that again.
At first it started off as it was gonna be a hard case, and then it turned into we're making progress.
You're making progress?
Yes.
And what had the defendant told you about the most that you could recover? What did he tell you at least?
Nothing.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 463 to your testimony and see if you recognize that document.
Yes, I do.
And what are those?
These are text messages between me and Alex.
Your Honor, at this time I would move State's 463 and 453, excuse me.
Subject to previous objections, no objection.
Okay, it's admitted.
Okay. It's so funny.
I'm going
Dick
to put
just
this up on the screen and kind of zoom it in. You got a screen over there, but if you can't see it because the writing's kind of small, you let me know and I'll bring it to you, okay?
Creighton does not moderate his tone with witnesses well.
Do you recognize that's on the screen right now?
Yes.
And who is that text from?
Alex.
And who is it to?
Me.
And can you read to the jury what that text says?
It says, hey man, just checking in, been working on case and made me think about you. Hope all is good. Call me anytime I can help.
And what was the date of that text?
April 12th, 2021 at 12:47.
Yeah,
All right.
his tone
I'm going to go to
is
this next one. Do you recognize that text?
he's
Yes.
aggressively
Who is
going
that
after his
from?
case, but it
That
sounds
is
like
from me to Alex
he's going after
responding
the
to his
witness.
text.
All right. And
it's
read that text to the jury
off-putting.
once you sent.
That text says, hey man, I'm doing good. By the way, how's the case going? Just curious. But how are you?
I'll show you this next text. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
And who is that from?
That is from Alex to me.
All right. And can you read that to the jury?
Finally getting some movement, still a ways to go, doing good, was just thinking about and thought I'd check in. Hope to see you soon.
Still a ways to go is what he said?
Yes.
At that point in time, did he tell you there had already been 2 recoveries in the case?
No.
Gloria Satterfield died in 2019, so
Going to this last text,
He would have
what is
been in
that?
his
Who is that
20s.
from?
That is from me back to Alex responding to his text.
All right. And what does it say?
Cool, thanks.
Sarah says 2018. Was it 2018? It might have been 2018. Thank you, chat. Boat case 2019. Satterfield 2018. My
Hold on
brain
for me just one second.
is very tired. I don't know what you need to hold for. You know exactly what you're going to ask him. This witness is 33. He is the son of Gloria Satterfield, who was a kind of house manager, housekeeper, nanny for the Murdaughs, worked for them for over 20 years.
Objection, I'm going to strike out one of the phone numbers on here so it can't be viewed.
She fell at Moselle on the red stairs leading up to the house and then died as a result of that fall at the hospital later. That is a whole separate case. She's been exhumed to investigate it, or is going to be. It's an odd case, but Alex said, I'm going to sue myself, and then hooked them up with all of his buddies, and then he and his buddies took all of the money and took all of the money. So it's an odd case. It's a very odd case.
Around this point in time,
The falling
we're
over
in
the dogs and stuff. It's just,
late spring of 2021.
it doesn't
Have
sit
you
well.
become aware of any media reporting about there actually being a settlement in your mother's case?
Yes, somebody sent me a text or something saying a legal document, but I can't remember who sent it to me.
All right. And You can't remember who sent it to you?
Yes, that's correct.
Did that cause you to reach out to the defendant and ask the status of the case?
That's leading.
Yes.
What did that cause you to do would be the not leading version.
I believe in June.
And do you remember if that was before or after the murders in this particular case?
I believe that was after.
And have you seen some records since the previous time in talking about this?
Previous to the call, no.
So, I know that they were going to continue looking at it, but I don't know if they have or have not. They were going to exhume her to look into
testimony.
it.
Is that some records you've been provided?
Paul and Maggie were there when she
Yes.
fell.
And
They're both on the
just
911
some
call.
records of phone calls between you and Alec?
I'm
Yes.
sure he
On
is
June
scared to
22nd?
death.
Yes.
This is not an easy thing to do. I can't imagine. So, it's
Do you
just,
have any,
the problem is.
would you
this
periodically reach
this
out to the
might-
defendant and get updates about the case?
Yes.
This might, if
And you
he's
had
convicted,
family
this,
reach out and ask you
this
to get
testimony
updates
will come
because
up
of
on
reading
appeal.
things in the media, is that correct?
Very much.
That is correct.
And you had conversations with him in June of 2021?
Yes.
You don't remember if those were before or after the murders?
Answered the question after June 7th.
What are the legal grounds for that, Dick?
Object to the leading question.
Grounds.
I would object to the suggestion that he hasn't already answered.
Grounds.
That this occurred after June 7th.
Grounds.
2021. He's impeaching his own witness.
I'm establishing a point that's not in dispute. These records
We
say
just do talking objections
they
now.
say.
Great.
I'm talking, I think he was prefacing that question with, you don't remember when you learned about it sometime in early June. If he-
Notice.
conceding, the witness said he
Notice
didn't,
how Dick tries to
learn about it
distract
till
from
after June
testimony.
7th, we don't have an argument. He's already testified to that.
Dick's testifying what he wants the jury to
Final
remember.
speaking response.
Your Honor, this witness has testified he had a conversation in June. He's testified in the spring of 2021 that he became aware of media reports and reached out to him. We've already seen some texts and we have some calls. I'm just following up on the fact that he had repeated communications with the defendant, asking him what is
They're
the
just
status of
arguing.
my case.
Now they're
And was
just
told As
arguing.
we move in time through the murders, oh, everything's fine, I'm still working on it.
Now they're just arguing for the jury. Now the attorneys are just
Sustained as to
arguing.
leading the witness.
He let the attorney get that response in because of the defense.
It's just a habit I got in and I can't seem to break it. I apologize. And by the way, if he ruled against me, I would still say thank you. It's just what I've learned to do. I don't know whether it's an old time thing or not.
Sit down,
I
Dick.
apologize.
Thank you.
Oh my God. They are trying to distract from the testimony, which we know is Dick's strategy. But he allowed the
Just to clear
prosecution
this
to
up,
re-argue,
How often would you talk to him?
and then he sustained it.
3 to 4
The
times.
fuckery today.
A year or something, I believe. I can't recall. Every few
Oh, the
months.
Would you
fuckery.
talk by phone or would you talk by text or both?
Both.
And when you would talk to him, would you ask about the status of your case?
Yes.
And each time you talked to him, what did he say?
It was making progress.
Making progress. Did he say it was a hard case or not?
Yes.
Did he ever tell you about how much money he might be able to get for you?
The goal was to get 100,000 apiece for me and my brother.
At any time over the years,
Dick is
did he
doing the
ever
most
tell
today.
you that there had already been a recovery in the case?
No.
At any time over the years, did he mention anything about having a $5 million umbrella policy?
No.
At any time, did he ever pay you 1 penny?
No.
You,
See, and now we're all distracted. Are you all distracted?
testified
I'm
earlier
distracted
that
by
you
what just
became the
happened.
personal representative, is that right?
That is correct.
Why were you the personal representative and not your brother?
Because my brother is a vulnerable adult man and he has a disability.
I'm still distracted. Are y'all distracted by that exchange?
That my brother, he's a vulnerable adult, so he's not able to function as a normal human being to be doing stuff like that.
He's a vulnerable adult.
Yes.
Right. A lot of you are like, yes, distracted. The jury might not be, but it distracted me a bit.
After the murders happened, at some point after that, did you go seek, or did you and your family go seek additional representation about this matter?
Yes.
And who did y'all eventually go to?
Where is Dick going? Sit the
my
fuck
aunt and my uncle
down.
went to Mark Tinsley, and then they sent us the area plan.
Distract.
Are you aware of there being a confession of judgment in your case against the defendant?
Yes.
For those missing recoveries?
Alex
Yes.
stole from Gloria Satterfield's son, who is a vulnerable adult. Sorry, it's hard for me to talk because it makes me so fucking mad, and I'm just trying to rein it in. But yes.
Document.
And Dick is standing up and walking around to distract the jury from how fucking terrible this is. And he's doing it
And you're
again.
aware there's a confession of judgment in that case?
Yes.
Did you have to file a claim against the defendant for those two
I am
recoveries you never
trying.
got for your mom's case?
Yes.
I'm trying.
And I'm going to show you 352. You're not a lawyer, are you?
No.
And have you read all that legal stuff in there?
Yes.
All right. But this has been something that you're aware of that occurred in your case, is that correct?
That is correct.
And ultimately, there's a confession of judgment
My
in the case. Do you
concern
know how much it is
is
right there?
that this is so prejudicial
$4,305,000.
that it could create a problem on appeal. That is my
Is
concern with
that for
this.
$3.8 million for one of them?
Yes.
And for $505,000 for the other recovery?
Yes.
Yeah, Alec doesn't look upset at all. Alec doesn't look upset at all.
Thank you, Your Honor. Oops, I just did it.
And that's the problem, is that at some point this can become overly prejudicial, and that creates a problem for appeal. Alec pled to this. This is absolutely disgusting stuff that he did. But will it inform the jury
defendant
about
came
the
to
murder,
you
or does it inform the jury that he's a piece of shit? And
Around the
that's
time
the
of your
problem.
mom's funeral, and said he was going to help you and file a claim on your behalf.
At the funeral.
Why did you agree?
He hit them up at
to
the
that.
funeral.
Because I trusted him.
Thank you. Nothing further.
Okay, fair, Creighton. Creighton saved it because I trusted him for the last question. That was well played, Creighton. I was annoyed you didn't do it earlier. That's fair play.
Tony?
Yes, sir.
May I call you Tony rather than Mr. Satterfield?
Absolutely.
Gross.
Call me Dick instead of Mr. Arpidi.
I'll call you Dick all day long.
Between your name and my name, it might add a little bit to this clause. So,
Ew.
let me ask you a few questions about your mother's death, and I apologize if in any way this brings back bad memories. I apologize.
Dick is going for the good guy.
Y'all
I'm the good guy.
filed
in
a
this.
lawsuit or made a claim against, I mean, basically, Al told you he would be the defendant. You'd be suing him, right?
Your client
Yes.
fucking stole from them,
And it was
Dick.
based on some dogs tripping your mom as she was going down the stairs. Is that right?
That's what they said, yes.
That's what they said.
But the only person that represented dogs tripped your mother going down the stairs was Alex, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, without his assertion, I mean, if she just fell down the stairs, there'd be no lawsuit, right?
I guess that's correct.
Okay, I'm sorry, not a lawyer.
Yeah,
She
there
could
should
accept
be an
my
objection.
representations. If she just fell down the stairs on her own, there would be no one to blame for that. Right?
All right.
No.
Repeat the question because I don't understand the question.
It's okay. Strike it, withdraw it.
He's
that way.
implying that Alec lied about tripping over the dogs because if
So,
Gloria fell on her own, there's
let
no
me
one to
ask you
sue.
this.
So he was being the
During
good
this
guy.
process, your lawyer,
Gross.
for the record, he told you, was Corey Fleming, right?
So he lied so he could
Yes.
sue
And
himself
that
to
was your
steal the
lawyer.
money?
Well, that was Murdaugh. They were all a team.
That doesn't
But
help
the-
you.
The person being sued, and
Yeah.
again, you're not sophisticated on this, was part of the team to get you a recovery.
Yes.
Okay. Now, there's a guy named Chad Westendorf. He was with a bank, right?
Yes.
And he was actually the PR. He took over, and it was his job to make sure y'all got your money, right?
Yes.
Did you ever meet with him?
Yes.
And what did he say?
flight one time. It was just to sign some paperwork for him to be
That was a
PR.
big implication.
And did you ever call him and say, what's going on with my case?
No,
Did you ever call Corey Fleming and ask what's going on with my case?
no.
That was a big
And,
insinuation.
Let me make sure I understand your testimony. You've got some notice.
Let me
of
make
something
sure I
in the
understand your
paper,
question,
and
Dick.
at some point after June 7th, you had either a phone call or a text or an email with Alec Murdaugh asking him what's going on, right?
Yes,
Now, and again, we see a series of phone
Why
calls
did you text
on
him? Oh, because I thought he was my lawyer.
22nd?
Yes.
Is
Yes.
that right? Where y'all were talking about this.
yes.
But was there anything on June 7th or prior to June 7th where you accused him of
I
anything?
love Tony's energy.
Prior to June 7th, no.
Okay.
I love the I said what I said
Now,
energy. I'm here for it.
After you became aware of,
Absolutely here for it. 100% here for it.
well, we saw just a moment ago a confession of judgment where Alec Murdaugh admitted that he owed you $3 million, not get this wrong. Where's the confession of judgment? There it is. $4,305,000. Is that right?
That's the judgment, yes.
Okay. But you hired a lawyer.
Oh, he's looking at Eric Bland, who's sitting right in court. He just pointed to
He actually
him.
sued Mr. Murdaugh's firm and some other folks
Eric Bland's
and
like,
got you
"Yeah, buddy."
$6.5 million, right?
Yes, or no, not that I'm aware of.
Pardon me?
Not that I'm aware of. The only thing I'm aware of is the judgment.
So Mr. Bland didn't tell you about the $6.5 million?
Yes,
Okay, I'm sorry. I just want to make sure history's not repeating itself here. And so you actually recovered $6.5 million, which would be a couple $1 million more than you would have gotten had you received the money that
Had
Alex took, right?
Alec not
yeah.
stolen it.
Okay. So you've been made more than whole for that loss.
yes.
$2 million more than you would have gotten had he not taken your money, right?
Okay, yes.
Okay. Now,
Oh,
sort of.
I wonder if this is pissing the
last
jury
question,
off.
that
'Cause
I think. that
he's
I
like,
have to-
"What?
Co-counsel before.
Has he been able to collect on that judgment?" Oh, of course Eric Bland is taking notes. You've been more than made
One
whole.
last question.
Sir, his mother died, and then his lawyer stole from him.
On June 7th, prior to June 7th,
He's,
prior to June 8th,
he's trying to tell the
have you
jury
ever
that they don't need to punish
threatened
Alec for this because
Alec
it's
Murdaugh
okay.
with exposure?
All right, could you repeat the question again?
Prior to June 8th, 2021, did you ever threaten Alec Murdaugh saying, I know you stole my money, where's my money? You know, I know you've got the money. Did you threaten him in any way?
No,
Okay.
Dick is trying to let the jury know
Thank you. I have no further questions.
that he doesn't need to, that he does, I don't know why everyone laughed, that was gross, that he doesn't need to punish Alec
Thank you.
because
Come back to,
he's recovered. That's what he's trying to show. You're better off because he stole your money was a implication I took away that felt kind of
States
gross.
453.
I don't know if you felt that way. That's how I felt.
These were texts that
You're
you
better
had
off. You got more.
about the case, is that
You
right?
got $2 million more.
yes.
And when did those occur?
These occurred in the spring and April of 2021.
April of 2021? And there had been media reporting about there being a settlement in this particular case, even though you hadn't received any money?
Yes,
Did you have periodic conversations with the defendant over the course of time?
yes,
And would you ask him about the case?
yes.
And he would tell you what?
It's a hard case, but it's a work in progress.
It's a hard case.
After all this happened, have you come to find out that the defendant took all of your money?
Yes,
And that's what led to that confession of judgment?
yes,
Did he, though, ever pay you 1 cent?
no,
You were asked
That's
about
it.
Corey Fleming, and I think you said they were all a team. Is that right?
yes, yes.
At its core, who did you consider was your lawyer for your mom's case?
Alex?
Thank you, Mr. Satterfield. Nothing further. He may have one more question.
Anything further?
Leave him be.
No. Thank you.
All right, you may step down, thank you.
You've been made more than whole. Just felt icky. And if it felt icky to all of us in the chat,
Call your next witness.
The state calls Jan Malinowski.
it'll probably feel gross to the jury too. Say Jan. Yes. Palmetto State Bank. Courts, there's a lot of, it sounds like there's a lot of more chatter in court today.
Do you affirm the testimony about the court in this trial shall be the truth?
So this is the new CEO of Palmetto State Bank.
Please state your name again for the record. Spell your last name.
It just, the whole thing felt ick. Everyone looks kind of horrified.
My name's Jan Malinowski, M-A-L.
Dick tried to make it all schmarmy and politician-y, and it just doesn't sit well with me. I'm just, ugh.
Today.
Doing well, thank you.
Good. Introduce yourself to the jury a little bit. Just tell them a little bit about yourself, kind of a little bit about your background and your career, and ultimately where you are now.
I'm the CEO because the other
I'm
one got
currently the
federally
CEO of Palmetto
prosecuted.
State Bank, headquartered in Hampton. I work in the Beaufort office. Started banking career out of the Citadel in the late 70s. Went to graduate school at the University of South Carolina. Had a progression of jobs at larger banks.
How many Gamecocks
Wachovia Bank and
games do you
Trust,
go to?
Barnett Banks of Florida,
Seems to be relevant.
First Union Bank, and then in February of 1991, I joined Palmetto State Bank.
Okay. And Palmetto State Bank, so you've been there since 1991?
Yes, sir.
And what roles have you served at Palmetto State Bank over the years?
Principally in charge of both of our branches. We have two branches in the Beaufort area, one on Ladies Island and one in the Burton, which is west of Beaufort. And that's been primarily my focus on a day-to-day basis, but I do have other responsibilities inside the company.
Okay. And your primary focus has been on Beaufort. Over here recently, has your duties or your role expanded?
Yep, we've
has.
heard from this witness
What is your
before.
current duty right now, or what your
I'm
current
the Chief
title?
Executive Officer,
The CEO. Okay, and when did you become the CEO of Palmetto
What
State Bank?
happened to the last
April of
one?
last year.
April of last year?
Where'd the old one go?
2022?
Excuse me, I mean, August of last year. I'm sorry.
August of last year. 2022.
Yes, sir.
What happened to the other one?
Who was the CEO prior to that?
Russell Lafitte.
Talk more
Yeah.
about that in a bit.
Yes, you will.
Tell me a little bit more about the governance of the bank. Is there a board of directors?
There is
And how many people are on the board of directors?
currently 8.
And is there a executive committee of board of directors and other senior leadership at the bank?
There is.
And can you describe that for the jury, please?
The executive committee today consists of our chairman, Becky Lafitte, Norris Lafitte, Liz Malinowski. I'm on the executive committee, and Gray Henderson is on the executive committee.
All right, but describe to me how that works. What's the purpose of the executive committee?
The executive committee is charged with typically making the senior decisions, upper management decisions that affect the day-to-day operations of the bank.
I also want to see what Eric Bland has to say later today.
Let me ask you this. As far as giving loans, are there levels of authority for different officials in the bank, and does that sort of graduate depending on the amount?
That's correct.
Can you explain that to the jury?
So
Throughout
y'all
the
have
bank, we
seen
have a number of loan
a lot of this
officers,
testimony already.
each
I
of
get it.
whom is granted a certain level of lending authority.
This is the
which
money and
approved
where it's
annually by the
moving.
board of directors. Any loans made, single loans above their lending
I
authority.
wonder what the
or
jury will
above,
think of their
their
overdraft
limits
policy.
Would then go to two executive officers, either myself or Ms. Henderson, to be approved or denied within our level of authority, which is up to $1 million. And then if for any loan, single loan or relationship from $1 million to $1.5 million, both she and I would have the approval authority, and anything above $1.5 million up to $8 million currently goes to the executive committee for approval.
With those levels of
I
authority.
don't think I could watch this
still
trial
you
without
have,
y'all
large loans with a particular
either.
customer or typical client. Are those the kind of things that might be discussed and updated in board meetings and executive committee meetings?
Executive committee meetings first, and those would be minuted in the executive committee minutes, and then elevated to the board, and periodically there'd be board discussions, yes.
Let's
So
Let's
y'all,
talk a
it's
little bit
just,
going back to September 2021 and before.
I just want them to get to the
Just wanna
overdraft
talk a little bit
policy.
about the bank then. Your primary focus in the bank was where at that period of time?
Buford.
All right. And was there another sort of hub of focus in the institution?
I wish
Well,
they had
Hampton,
done,
is our
I wish
main
they had had
office.
Michael
It's the largest branch
Satterfield
among
testify,
the 7
or
branches.
Tony,
Back in that
testify at
period
the
of
end
time,
of the day.
September 2021 and prior, explain to
Instead
me how
of-
those two hubs work and just
I wish
generally
they had had him on after
how
this
the bank
witness.
operated in practice in that regard.
Well, Hampton being the largest office had the most business. It was also a location where Russell Lafitte had his office, his father Charlie had his office, and Sister Gray Henderson had her office. Largely, I was focused on the activities in
We need a
Beaufort, as I
chart of
said.
how everyone's related.
Did the bank have kind of a decentralized functioning that Hampton kind of did its thing and Beaufort did its thing to some extent?
Yes, sir, to some extent.
And was the defendant a customer of the bank?
Yes, he was.
And was he more in the Hampton side of things or the Beaufort side of things?
Just talk about the
Hampton.
overdraft. Just get to the overdraft. That's the part
Did
we all
the
care
defendant
about.
have a particular banking relationship with one particular official at the bank or former official?
Yes, Russell
Who was-
Lafitte.
Russell Lafitte?
We've got about 2 hours of trial left today. An hour and 45 minutes, 2 hours.
Moving into
But we need this because we need the
2021.
money that was sent to Cousin Eddie. We need to know that.
spring of 2021, or
stuff
just
in
during
here we need.
2021, did you, as primarily the Beaufort side, but as also as a board member, did you have any particular concern at that time about the defendant, Alec Murdaugh's, the nature of his relationship with the bank?
At that time, no,
Didn't have any concern at that time?
no, sir.
You were more focused on Beaufort, is that right?
Correct.
And you had no reason at that time to think that anything was going on, is that correct?
No, sir.
At some point in time, did you become aware, obviously, of the murders of Maggie and Paul Murdaugh?
Tinsley
sir.
has not testified again yet.
After that happened, did you have any particular concern about the defendant and any loans he owed to the bank or anything like that at the
He
time?
had significant loans with the bank. The murders were obviously traumatic and tragic. And the board and executive committee did bring up Mr. Murdaugh's relationship with the bank.
Grab some exhibits real quick.
Dale Mack said, I feel like this is the prosecution's strategy, mix murder and money testimonies to tie them together inextricably. I don't think it's a good strategy if that's a strategy. I don't know what their strategy is with the witness staging. It's been odd to me. It's been hard to see why.
Your testimony.
So, we're going to get into how many loans he had and how in debt he was. The thing is, for me, as interesting as his testimony is and the fact that he overdrafted his account by like $350,000 and everybody was like,
Recognize this
cool.
document.
If there's no financial benefit from the murder of Maggie and
Minutes of the
Paul,
board of directors meeting
the
of
jury's going to be left
Palmetto State
asking,
Bank,
so
Tuesday,
why does
July
this matter?
20th, 2021.
He's in debt up to his
Who's
eyeballs.
the secretary
Okay,
for those minutes?
but is he financially
Gray
benefiting?
Henderson?
All right, and just quickly tell the jury what
I don't think it
minutes
helps.
of a board
I really don't. I
directors
don't think
meeting
this
are. What
testimony
do those
helps.
mean?
The minutes
let me
should
know what you think when it's
memorialize the discussions of the board members across any number of
he's in debt,
topics,
okay.
loans, operations of the bank.
That's the
that
pressure,
have public
okay.
interest.
Okay, and just look at that real quick, that's on what date?
It's the meeting of July 20, 2021.
July 20, 2021, and I looked through there real quick, and was there any discussion or any mention of any discussion of any loans with the defendant, Alec Murdaugh?
No, sir, there are not.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time I would move
I believe without any additional objections, State 355 into evidence.
No other objections.
We don't
admitted.
have, Vitamin, I get your point, but the boat case didn't stop. The boat case kept going and is still ongoing, and there's no evidence that there was an upcoming divorce in court. So unless they prove that, the boat case didn't stop. The boat case kept going and is still going. So it paused, it slowed it down, but it didn't stop.
Moving on
that's
from
the-
July,
that's the
I just want
problem.
to be clear, were you aware in July of 2021 of any additional loan being made to Alec Murdaugh?
No, I was not.
Moving on into August 2021, did you at some point become aware, or was there some event occurring at the bank where any loans to Alec Murdaugh came to the Board of Directors' attention?
Yes, on August 9th.
Go ahead, describe that to the jury.
On August 9th, a board member, Norris Lafitte, emailed
Yes, everyone's named
the board
Lafitte.
and the executive committee asking for a complete accounting
found it at
of
the bank.
Alec Murdaugh's loan relationship with Palmetto State Bank.
All right, and did any events start to happen as a result of that?
Yes, there were.
All right, let's take them in order, and let's go nice and slow so I can follow along. What was the first thing that happened?
A deposit of $400,000 was made.
Excuse me, where did the feed go? Where did the feed go? Where did the feed go?
To one of Mr. Murdaugh's accounts.
A deposit of $400,000. Who caused that deposit to be made?
We buffered right past the
At that
fucking
time,
overdraft.
on August 9th, do you know what the balance was in that particular account that money was in?
We buffered
It was
past the
overdrawn
overdraft.
significantly, I believe, above $367,000.
Overdrawn by $360,000.
And I'm going to, hold on for me real quick.
Overdrawn by $360,000. He said overdrawn by $360,000, and then the bank just plopped $400K into his account. However, what is happening in this courtroom today? Are they having power issues? Because the lights just went out in court. Ooh. It's the night that the lights went out in South Carolina. We're literally getting back to don't trust your soul to no backwoods Southern lawyer. Like it's actually happening in real time. The courtroom called Code Red.
All right, thank you, Judge.
It's kind of like when the Amber Alert went off during
356,
closing
I'm
in the
this
Amber Heard
document so you
case.
can recognize this.
Interesting.
This is a copy of an account statement, page 2 of an account
Everybody just forgot
statement.
about the $350,000 overdraft.
Account number ending in the
'Cause the lights got screwy.
6092 of Richard Alexander Murdaugh.
All right, and can you tell me on August 6th, 2021, what the balance was in the defendant's account at Palmetto State Bank?
On August 6, 2021, the balance was a negative $347,784.67.
Had the bank continued paying expenses for Alec Murdaugh from June 7th to this date to the tune of $347,000 in money he did not have?
Correct.
And why the fuck would you do that? Because you trusted him?
Your Honor, this time I'd move Stage 356 into evidence.
No additional objections.
It's admitted.
I wouldn't be surprised if Dick
right
wandered
here.
over to the lights either.
What date is that?
August 6, 2021,
We'll go up to the top. What's the name on this account?
Richard Alexander Murdaugh.
So they call him the Murdaughs.
And
More like
what's the
Murdaugh.
balance in his account again, please?
A negative $347,784.67.
Okay.
What is that right there?
Overdraft charge,
How much is the overdraft charge?
$5.
$5.
Okay.
Is that typical policy for a bank to pay
That got a laugh.
overdrafts over the course of a month for $347,000?
No, sir.
And were you aware of that at the time?
I was not.
The overdraft charge was $5. Look, if you are overdrawn by $3, your bank is going
What
to
is
charge you
this right
17
here?
to 20.
This
I
transaction, what's the
guarantee.
date on it?
Those are just
August
facts.
9th, 2021.
And what is that right there?
That's a deposit of $400,000.
Okay. And is that what you were describing was the first action as a result of one of the board members inquiring about the status of,
Oh, y'all, you're
Richard
all like,
Alexander
no,
Murdoch's
35,
accounts with the
35,
bank?
35,
Yes, sir.
and who
40,
caused that deposit to be
40.
made?
Russell Lafitte.
And what was the source of those funds of $400,000?
It was a debit to an account or general ledger account called Loans Not on System.
What does
Loans
that
off
mean?
the
Where's
books.
that money coming from? Did that belong to any entity? Where did it come from?
It came from the bank.
From the bank. At that period in time, was there any loan application in existence or any sort of paperwork to justify that $400,000?
No.
Off the books loans. But here's the thing, it cuts both ways for me
And after that $400,000
because
went
everyone's
in,
just
what
covering
was the
for him.
balance
So
of the
why
account?
does he need this?
Had a positive balance of $52,215.33.
When did the
Well,
bank
walking
tell
around
him?
money.
When did the bank tell him this was going to stop? When did the bank tell him that they weren't going to cover his ass anymore?
When that
Because
deposit went in, were you
if
aware
they're covering it, what does he
of a
need?
deposit of $400,000 going in at that time?
At that time, no.
And you're a board member, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, that was the first action. What else occurred, if anything, as a result of an inquiry being made about the defendant's finances?
There was a flurry of activity inside the Hampton office. to
Also,
create
Creighton's
loan
real proud of that
documents.
walk around money line. He's used it
Create
like
loan
3 times
documents?
now.
Yes, sir.
Create loan documents after the fact?
Yes, sir.
It froze again. What he said was creating loan documents after the fact. And since
What
we've
if
already
anything else happened
seen this
after
testimony,
that?
we know that Russell Lafitte's been
result
prosecuted
of
and
that
convicted of this
inquiry.
fuckery.
As a result of that inquiry, a memo was drafted and submitted to the executive committee.
So Alex's boys were
outlining
covering
the,
for him, but when did
relationship
it
with
stop?
Alec Murdaugh at that time.
The loans off the books, I think, cut both ways for me. I really do. I think the loans off the books are like, oh, well, everyone's covering for him. He didn't need any help because he's got all these people like doing all the things. So I really do. I want to know when they said that this was going to
Try to
stop.
knock out two at once.
Don't, Creighton. Just go step by step and just get done. So that's what I want to know. When did the bank say enough is enough? And if the bank didn't say enough is enough, then okay, they didn't say enough is enough, so he's covered. The bank's just throwing $400,000 in his account. When did that ever happen to anyone? So,
All right, so those three actions take place. At
When
some
did
point,
that-
does this finally come to your attention and to the rest of the board's attention?
thank you.
It does.
And you
When?
recall about what date that was?
I believe it would have been the date of the executive committee on the 12th.
All right. And I'm going to show you what's been marked as Exhibit, State's Exhibit 354 to your testimony and see if you recognize that.
These are minutes of the executive committee that took place August 12th, 2021.
After the murders.
Reviewing those, are they generally accurately reflect what y'all
After
talked about in that
murders.
executive committee meeting?
Yes, sir.
And is there any reference or discussion of the defendant, Richard Alexander Murdaugh?
There is.
All right, and again, was this the first time that you were aware of the true nature of his financial condition and the fact of any further monies being expended to him from the bank?
This was, again, the formal summary of his banking relationship at that time. Yes.
Did Alec knew he?
Your
Did
Honor,
Alec
this time I'll
know?
offer State's 356 in evidence.
Did Alec know this was being? This was
354.
crumbling.
Apologies.
It's 354, correct?
354.
Did he know
No
the jig
additional
was up?
objection, Your Honor.
Submitted.
That's what I want to know. Did he know that it was over imminently?
And the first sentence is, what does that say right there?
It says Gray Henderson distributed a memo to the members outlining the bank's current relationship.
Okay. And what's the second sentence right there?
I have questions.
Guaranteed loans.
So he owes the bank how much at that point in time?
At that time, $4.2 million.
I don't know what just happened to the sound
Yes, sir.
of that.
I'll show you what's been marked as 365.
The
to your
closed
testimony,
captioning
or to
froze
this
for a
trial,
second.
and see if you recognize that.
This is a copy of the memo that was presented to the executive committee on the 12th.
I can't
of
grab
August.
them.
All right. And Your Honor, this time I'd offer states 365 in evidence.
The closed captioning is frozen.
Submitted.
Apologies. I don't control it.
And this is that memo you were talking about that was prepared?
Yes, sir.
All right. And does this kind of set forth some of the debts and obligations that were owed by the defendant at that point in time?
It does.
All right. And in that second sentence, what is that total amount?
He currently has total principal balance through family, et cetera, of $4,219,623.
4 million. And yes,
This list right here, what does that reflect?
It lists all the loan numbers, the principal balances, and the collateral if they were secured.
Lauren B., I think this is a very good point. All of this would have come to wash on June 10th. That is a very fair point. Tinsley hasn't testified yet, but we will see him testify about the boat case. The defense is going to argue that this wouldn't have all come up in civil discovery,
Now,
but
you
the
mentioned
state of
that
his
we
accounts
talked
would have come
about
up.
the
And the
memo,
state
we
of his
talked
accounts
about
was
transfer,
overdrawn
and you mentioned that
AF.
there was some application documentation that started to be created. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. And you're the CEO now, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you've had a chance to go back and to look into what's happened and review these various records, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Can you give us a summary? Because that'd be delightful. Tinsley is the attorney on the boat case, the civil attorney on the boat case. So I don't know if we'll get there today.
It is Exhibit 362 to your testimony, and see if you recognize this document.
Tinsley brings the heat and the sass, and so we're just amused. We're ready.
This is a copy of a Palmetto State Bank promissory note, commercial, single advance, loan number 6996048, in the amount of $750,750.
And who's the borrower on that particular document?
Richard Alexander Murdaugh.
All right. And then I'm going to show you what's been marked as 363 and see if you recognize that.
This is a document that accompanies the note. It's part of the loan package. It's called a business purpose statement.
Your Honor, this time I'd move in states 362 and 363.
No additional objection, Your Honor.
Submitted.
Is he overdrawn due to him hiding money? I don't know. I don't know
All right,
where
let's
the
take a look
money
at this
went.
document real quick. This is 362. Looking at the last page, what date is that document signed?
July 15th, 2021.
All right.
Yes, still financials.
Going back and
But the bank
looking
this time, we're getting
at
closer to being done.
the first page, could this document that was at least supposedly signed on July 15th, 2021, could it have even existed on July 15th, 2021?
No, sir.
It could not have.
It could not have.
And tell the jury why you know that.
Because the loan numbers generated by one of our software programs related to loan transactions, the loan numbers are issued sequentially.
All right? And so this sequential number would,
This was not a July sequence number.
all right? And so what month would it have been a sequence?
August.
And is that how you know that this didn't occur until August after that inquiry was made?
Yes, sir.
So at the bank,
Well, let's talk about July
tried to cover their
15th,
tracks.
2021.
The guy who got prosecuted. So they were covering for it. Jerica said every time you say Tinsley, I think of Tinsley
As things have come to
Mortimer,
light
so
and
do
you look
I.
more into this, did it come to your attention as to why these documents would have been backdated to July of 2021?
Yes, sir, because there was another subsequent transaction.
All right? And what transaction was that generally?
It was a wire transfer.
Okay.
Only if he thinks someone's going to find it. Chad, I see you guys talking about what's going on with family members. I will take a look on Twitter as we're going through this. I haven't looked. So I haven't looked. I will look. Question, if all of these attorneys are the best of the best, you can't object correctly, ask questions. Both sides come across as amateur. It's a different style. This has been a frustrating trial. I've never seen anything quite like it. It's wild. For those of you that are saying this witness sounds embarrassed, yes, his bank acted embarrassingly.
I'll show you what's been marked as States 358 to your testimony, see if you recognize that.
They have been their bank's under
This is,
investigation, and
standard
someone's been
domestic
prosecuted.
wire request form.
Y'all, I'll
dated
take a look
July
after I'm done
15th,
streaming.
2021.
Okay. And,
It's
Your
hard for
Honor,
me
this
to do
time I
both.
would move to admit States 358.
Objection.
Admit it.
Do you think he gave his go bag to SBF and FTX?
Did you know about this wire when it was
Possibly,
sent?
No,
when they
sir.
were in
You know
Alameda.
about this wire in August of 2021?
I did upon subsequent investigation, yes,
And when did you find out about that, roughly?
in August of 2021.
Question, how many
Put this
others
up on
connected
the
to Alec have
screen.
been charged? Russell Lafitte, cousin Eddie, and there are others that I'm not
What's
remembering
the
at the moment
date
because there's so many, but
on
at
this
least
wire?
4 others.
July 15th,
Russell Lafitte's been convicted.
2021.
And where does this wire
Cousin
go?
Eddie's pending trial.
It goes to the Wilson Law Group, LLC, IOLTA account.
IOLTA account? Are you familiar if that's a lawyer trust account?
Yes, sir.
And what's this page that's attached to it?
Appears to be the wiring instructions. The account name, Wilson Law Group, LLC, IOLTA account. Bank is South State Bank in Bamberg, South Carolina,
So
and
that's the-
South State's routing number. Contact information is Chris at wilsonlawgroupsc.com, Gail at wilsonlawgroupsc.com.
And what
This
is the source of funds for
Is
this
important. Just
$350,000?
note.
Again, it's the bank's internal account, general ledger account, loan not on system.
Loan out on system.
The
Bank
off-the-books
money.
loan
Yes, sir.
went
And
to
at
Chris
this time,
Wilson.
is there any documentation whatsoever justifying $350,000 of bank money being given to the defendant to send to Chris Wilson?
No, sir.
That's how he covered up the Chris Wilson money to try to make it go away. So, that. Off the books loan,
When you had a
$400,000,
discussion at the
and
board
that's how he
meeting in
paid for
August,
Chris, and that's why he didn't have enough.
2021, were there any representations made to you about the purposes for some new loan to Alec Murdaugh?
Yes, there were.
And what were you told the purposes were?
Repairs to Beach House.
Repairs to the beach house?
Yes, sir.
And who told you that?
Russell Lafitte.
Okay. And did he tell you at any time that it was $350,000 to Chris Wilson to put some fees back?
No, sir.
Did he tell you that at any time it was $400,000 to cover a negative $347,000 overdraft that the bank had been paying for him since June of 2021?
No, sir.
So this, to
Show what's
me,
been marked as Exhibit 359, see if you recognize
this
this.
testimony, if they tie it together, shows that things are starting to
This is the customer
crumble.
copy of a cashier's check number 287933 in the amount of $400,000.
So this is the
dated
crumble.
8/9/2021.
All right, and does it have what appears to be a copy of a sticky note on there?
It does.
And whose writing is that? Do you recognize it?
Russell Lafitte's.
All right, and there's a reference to Green Swamp stock. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Do you know what that is?
It's a hunt club. It's shares of a hunt club, a share of a hunt club.
So the bank is giving him off-the-books
I'm gonna show
loans
three-
to
States
cover the money back
363
to
up
Chris
on the
Wilson.
screen, and I showed you this previously, but what is this document?
That's the business purpose statement.
All right. And what does it say? Is this for that loan in which the application is being drafted after the fact?
Yes, sir.
And what does it say the purposes are?
Purpose is investment.
All right. And what, again, had you been told as a board member was the purpose of this supposed new loan?
Repairs to the beach house.
As you've come to review all of this information, was any of that $750,000 used for any repairs to the beach house?
To my knowledge, no.
And when it's $750,000, we're talking about the $350 of the wire to Chris Wilson, correct?
Yes, sir.
And then the $400,000 to cover the overdraft and then a little bit.
Yes, sir.
At some point in time, was there any discussion about collateral for this particular loan?
Yes, there was.
All right, and tell me about those
Well, I'm
discussions.
sure there
What was your
was.
understanding of collateral for these loans?
The collateral was to be a second mortgage on the beach house and the one share of green swamp stock.
And the beach house was in whose name? Who had to sign off on
And
that
did-
second
as
mortgage?
Things progressed, did any of that change?
Because
far
that's
as
the info
collateral?
they need.
We did not put the mortgage on the beach house.
Why was that?
Mrs. Murdaugh was deceased, and she had an ownership interest in the beach house.
Say that again.
At some point
Say
in
that
time,
again. No, Creighton, you've said everything again except for that.
so
You've said
ultimately,
everything
this
again except
particular
for
loan,
that.
did it have
Creighton,
any collateral at all?
Nominally, the green swamp stock.
And why do you say nominally?
It had been cross-collateralized to other loans.
I don't care about Green
In your
Swamp.
experience as a banker, is it common
They couldn't
or
get the
usual
second mortgage
to
because it was in
provide
Maggie's name.
a new loan to cover an overdraft like was done in this case?
Not to this magnitude, no, sir.
They wanted to get another mortgage to collateralize the loan on the beach house. The beach house was in Maggie's name. And when Maggie passed, they couldn't get it then because she had passed, and then it went to his name. But they didn't tie that together. Well, we'll see if they do. Yes, all the tea is on Twitter.
Let me show you what's been marked as
When
State
Creighton stops talking, I will
257,
talk
so you
about what's being
recognize this.
reported about in courtroom shenanigans. Don't worry, I'll get to it, I promise.
These are minutes of the directors of Palmetto State Bank, Tuesday, August 17th, 2021.
Your Honor, this time I would offer States 357 into evidence, I believe without additional objection.
Correct, no additional objection.
Oh, the
Submitted.
closed
All right, is there
captioning is drunk and
discussion
needs
of
to
the
go home
defendant in
today.
this particular document.
There is.
Now, we'd seen one before, which was an executive committee meeting in August, and was this the subsequent board meeting?
Yes, it was.
All right. Let me put that up on the screen. You have a screen right there, if you can
Yes, sir.
see that. If you have problems seeing it, just let me know, and I'll bring it back to you, okay?
Yes, sir.
So local reporter Steve Norris at Steve Norris TV on Twitter is reporting that the reason Paul is not sitting where he was sitting before is because he's been moved back because of an obscene gesture,
Right. And
middle
this is
finger,
discussion
given by
as it relates to
Buster
the
to
defendant
Mark
right there?
Tinsley. That would have been
Yes, it
yesterday.
does.
All right. And real quick, what's the second sentence right there in this particular
There's more.
discussion?
Russell L. Lafitte stated that his intention is to sell the farm.
All right. And down here at the bottom, what does that sentence right there say?
So don't worry, I'll get back.
Elizabeth Malinowski commented the $750,000 loan did
Did
not
I say
appear to have
Paul?
been approved
I meant
by the
Buster.
executive
That's my
committee.
apologies
All right. And then what's the next sentence?
if I did.
Russell Lafitte explained that 3 of the 5 members approved the loan.
All right. And so with 3 of the 5 members approving the loan, were you on the executive committee at that
What
time?
happens when I try to talk too fast?
I was, yes.
But you were not informed of any of these monies being expended or this after-the-fact documentation or any of it, is that
No,
correct?
sir.
After the fact means it was an off-the-books loan, and then the off-the-books loan got covered up. Again, people have been prosecuted for this already. The last CEO, Russell Lafitte, was convicted in December. So we are hearing from reports from in the courtroom, from local reporter, that Buster flipped off Mark Tinsley when he testified. When asked to move back to the back of the courtroom by security, he reportedly kicked over a water bottle. Alex's sister passed a note to Alex's lawyers to pass to him. You can't pass notes in court. Apparently, Randy and John Marvin have not been an issue at all. But next step for any offending family members is to be removed from the courtroom for the remainder of the
Some of
trial.
these things
So that's why
ultimately
Buster is sitting all the way in
came
the
to
back.
light in the months following. What happened to Russell Lafitte?
He was terminated from the bank.
And is that what led to you ultimately becoming CEO?
Yes, sir.
Y'all brought it up yesterday
in
in
the
the
course of
stream
your
because you
review
saw
as
it.
CEO,
You saw the
of
notes
what
being
had been
passed
going on
while
at
we were
your
streaming. It was in the
institution,
chat.
Did you,
Oh, the stream is struggling today. Apologies, not our stream. We're fantastic. The incoming stream. Thank God it's not new testimony that is buffering. So apologies on the buffering. Let's see if we can. Nope. Ah, what happened? All right, that completely switched. Give me 1 second. to try to get to a different stream because this is just not going well.
Putting a child on a stand to talk about, and again, he didn't know when he found out about it, or when he began to raise those issues.
I have the wrong feed.
He is an adult, he has a job in an
I don't know
emergency room. That's
which
okay.
feed is up because I hear stuff that I'm not
apologize
supposed
to
to be
the young
hearing.
man.
Give me 1 second, y'all.
He looks young to me.
So we've got just a second and I will get this back up. Sorry, y'all. We are professionals here, but this tech on the mobile setup is fighting with me for the moment. So give me a second and we'll get that back up. Apologies, y'all. It was running so smoothly. It was just, we were doing so well. Just chat. You can just, all of you, just, you're doing amazing, sweetie. I'll take it. I'll take all of it at the moment. We'll just go to you're doing amazing, sweetie, and leave it there. We're still in testimony we've already heard. So at least while we're doing amazing, it's not that we're missing anything. And I've got the feedback up now and they're all just standing there looking at each other. So we've missed nothing.
See if you recognize this document.
Yay!
This document is a printout from our loan accounting system, which summarizes the loans outstanding to
We fixed it.
Mr. Richard Alexander Murdaugh.
As of a particular day.
And
As
guess
of
what? We've
June
missed
7, 2021.
Your Honor, this time I'd move State 366 into evidence.
No additional objections.
Submitted.
We've missed nothing.
All right, let's take a look at it. Can you see that all right?
Yes, sir.
All right, there's certain numbers that are highlighted here. Is that the balance as of that particular date?
It's the principal balance, yes, sir.
All right, and so that number right there is what?
$104,119.80.
And the balance right there is what?
$806,666.26.
And the balance right there is what?
$195,171.64.
And that balance right there, what is that?
$999,650.94.
And then finally this.
$91,368.90.
This particular one right there, is that a line of credit?
I liked the strategy
sir.
of the objections earlier
And
today.
how
I did.
much, what's the limit on the line of credit? Line of credit's kind of like a credit card. It's got a limit on it, right?
That's correct.
Theirs
What's the
didn't.
line of credit? How much was it for?
$1 million.
And what was the balance on it?
$999,650.94.
Alec
Pretty
Murdaugh
much
is
maxed
defining
out.
I got 99
Yes, sir.
problems right now. We're going to just pull up some of the super chats. The ones with questions I'm going to try to answer. Leanne G said, so the Satterfields didn't know about the stolen money at the time of the murders. It seems that way.
Going back to States 365, we've got this one right here. What was the balance on that one with this memo that was prepared around August of 2021?
That loan balance is $599,400.
And was that also a line of credit as well?
It was,
And what was the limit on that line of credit?
I believe, $600,000.
So that one was pretty much maxed out too, correct?
Yes, sir.
Not listed on States 366 are two that are on this memo. One says Zero United and one says Redbeard. Are you familiar with what those are?
Yes, sir.
Nuance,
And
you
are
feel
those,
better with your
business entities?
infection?
They are.
That sounds
And,
miserable.
do you know who those are associated with?
Mr. Murdaugh was a partner, member of the LLC.
All right. And had those two loans been charged off?
They had been,
And to your
Donna, I'm
understanding,
sorry for the
those
loss of your mom.
entities own real property?
yes, in Berkeley County.
All right. When you say charged off, what does that mean? Explain that very quickly to the jury.
In the banking, if a loan becomes uncollectible for whatever reason, the borrower suffers financial difficulties, other issues, the bank will at some point in time make a determination whether to take it off its books and subsequently charged off.
Okay. Did the bank foreclose on the properties under those particular two entities?
We did
No.
not.
All right. And so
They
it
would've
takes off the
foreclosed
books,
on
so it
y'all.
stops accruing interest and late charges and all that kind of stuff, right?
Actively, yes, sir.
Hoofs.
Actively at least, correct?
Yes.
And did the defendant, was he still though
Goes away.
expected and required to keep paying on those particular loans?
It didn't dissolve him of his obligation, but he periodically made payments.
Periodically made payments on
Thank you,
those
OG
loans.
Sean White. I love courtcaster. 'Cause we
If
basically
the
are a
defendant had tried
sportscaster.
to sell
Color-
those
color
properties or
commentator.
something like that, what if anything, would the bank would have been entitled to in the event
Nurse
that
Hill,
was
thank
attempted?
you.
We would have been entitled to the outstanding principal balance at the time, plus lost interest and any late fees and charges.
All right, so that would have to be applied against any sale price before those things could be, that property could be sold, correct?
Yes, sir.
And it would be somewhat higher than the numbers on this memo, is that right?
Yes, sir.
F.E. Wild, I'm always happy to body double, and when I'm in trial, I know a lot of you do that with me all day long, and I'm here for it.
One
It
of the
helps
things
so
on
much.
here is
I'm the same way.
this particular loan right here, and what is that for?
A house in Edisto.
The beach house.
And-
Tie this back better. Tie this back
In
better.
April 2021, was there any sort of thing going on with that particular loan that needed to be addressed?
The loan had matured.
It had matured, and explain to the jury what that means.
At that time, the balance of the loan, the note itself had reached its maturity date, and the borrower would be required to, the bank and the borrower were required to come together and determine what they wanted to do.
It was
Either renew it,
grown.
extend it, whatever.
Right, and it had not been paid off,
They
correct?
had not been paid off, no.
Since it matured, it either had to be renewed or paid off, correct?
Yes, sir.
And because of that need for a renewal, had an appraisal been sought in April of 2021?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Right. Let me show you the exhibit. You need to show it to the defense counsel.
So the loan had matured on the beach house. They also needed the beach house as a second mortgage to secure other things. And the beach house, Maggie had an ownership interest in, but they didn't
364,
clarify that she had the
Mr.
only
Strauss, since you
ownership
recognize
interest in.
this.
Top page is an email from Chastity Malfris to Charles Lafitte III, who is the bank's appraisal officer, regarding an appraisal request for 3606 Big Bay Drive, Edisto.
Is that the Edisto house we're talking about?
Yes, sir, it is.
All right. And is this, and that's the appraisal request form underneath it?
It is?
Colby, I don't feel like
And
I'm
that
following this
relates
well.
to the
This case hurts
renewal
my
of the
head.
existing loan on Edisto, is that correct?
That is correct.
Did this appraisal have anything to do with this $750,000 that you've been telling the jury about?
No, sir.
This was already in existence because of an existing loan, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this case hurts my head. And I'm going to end up saying July instead of July from here on out.
And
It's
Your
just
Honor,
over
this
for
time I
me.
would offer States 364 in evidence.
No additional objection, Your Honor.
Submit it.
Lisa R. said this is wild. He overdrafted more than my loan on my mortgage. The bank doesn't even seem to care. They don't. I would lose my house if I did this. Most of us would. Most of us would. Most of us don't just get to like, they wrote off the loans and then just didn't care if he was paying them or not. They just don't care. Sure. That's never happening for us, folks. This is not how we live. This is how he lived. But also, we haven't gotten back around
One I
to
forgot,
who owns
States
the beach house.
360. We'll show this to you real quick, and then we'll get to the beginning of the end. Yeah, can you tell me what that is?
Yes,
I'm
sir.
sorry.
This is, I'm sorry, it's the checking deposit ticket of a $400,000 deposit going into an account, last four digits, 6092, in the name of Alex Murdaugh.
I don't know if they're going to circle back to
Underneath
the
that
beach
is
house.
the
They need
cashier's
to.
check itself, which accompanied the deposit ticket, cashier's check number 287933, in the amount of $400,000
More
dated
checks.
August 9th, 2021.
Your Honor, this time I'd offer States 360.
Great.
No additional objection, Your Honor.
Submit it.
The judge is like, it's admitted.
This is
Can we
that
move on?
$400,000 that covered the big overdraft, is that right?
Yes, sir.
It's so wild. The bank is under investigation, by the way. I mean, there has been some accountability for some of this stuff. But this is a local regional bank started by the Lafitte's. It's just wild. It's wild. All right, I'm going to try to get to questions as we can to kind of zoom and all of this. Oh, that's going to take too long. We'll come back to that. Family got moved to the back of the courtroom. Yes, we will talk about that. I kind of zoomed through it, but we'll get there. Rosie shared her theory of this. The prosecution hasn't made their theory clear.
Could you say that again?
Oh my God. No, I wasn't talking about you. God, Siri wants to have her moment. Dude in the green behind AM looks like Judge Doom from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. That's
I'm gonna
fair.
show you one
I don't know
last
who he
series
is. He's
of
there every day.
documents here. One at a time.
There is an
Showing first what's been marked.
infamous pirate named Jean Lafitte.
Has not been marked.
Just saying. I don't know if they're related to
States
Pirate Lafitte.
367, and is that a statement balance for account in the name of Alec Murdaugh?
It is. It's Alec Murdaugh, farm account number 1646.
Farm
And
account.
on June the 7th, 2021, can you tell me the balance in that account?
The balance of the account is a negative $2,458.23.
Lynn, you're not confused because you're coming in late. You're confused
367.
No additional objection.
because this is extraneous and hard to
I'm
follow.
going to show you what's been marked as
We've
368 and
got
see if you
moments of
recognize that.
information and then it like
It's
dies.
a copy of an account statement for account number 6092 in the name of Richard Alexander Murdaugh.
All right. And can you tell me what the account balance is on June 7th, 2021?
On June 7th, the balance in the account is $2,185.23.
We have at least one
Your
more
Honor, this
witness
time
to
I've
the
moved to admit
financial
States
stuff,
368.
which is
No
Tinsley,
additional objection.
who apparently was flipped off by
I'm going to show
Buster
you what's been
Murdaugh.
marked as States
is
69,
wild.
369, excuse me, and see if you recognize, or you can tell me what the balance, what that document is. If I can get a question out eventually.
Great,
This is
Creighton,
the,
that, we love the
account
self-awareness
statement
for you.
For a health savings account, last four digits 3094, also in the name of Richard Alexander Murdaugh.
All right. And can you tell me what the balance of that was on June 7th, 2021?
On June 7th, it would be $7,540.61.
And that's a health savings account?
Yes, sir.
Can that be
We'll
used
do
for
that
any
in a minute.
expenditures, or is that limited, is that a special type of account that's limited to medical expenditures?
It's a special account.
Well, that's
generally
leading.
limited to medical expenditures.
Your Honor, this time I'd move States 369.
I don't
balance.
care the
No
balance
additional
of his
objection.
healthcare savings account. The balance of
Show
the
you what's been marked as
HSA is
States
just,
370. And see if you can tell me what that particular document is.
Another account, a copy of account statement. This one is the last four digits 6649 in the name of Alex Murdaugh.
All right, can you tell me what the balance is on June 7th, 2021?
The balance on June 7, 2021 is $62,115.06.
they're going
And
to
then finally, I've
what,
got a
what his
set of
financial
documents.
picture was.
And Your Honor, real quick, I'll move States 370 in that.
This is foundation for Mark Tinsley, the boat case attorney, to talk or to testify.
Last one, can you
This
tell
is-
me what?
This is what would be uncovered. They're like, this is the financial picture that's about to be
Copy
uncovered.
of an
And
account
it's
statement
bad.
number 5109
That's what this all is.
in the name of Margaret Maggie Murdaugh.
All right, and just real quick, for the record, I'm having you look at States 371. All right, could I take a look at it again?
Same account number, Margaret Maggie Murdaugh.
All right, and just go back, can you tell me what the account balance is on that particular account, at least as of, go back to the first one, of June 24th, 2021.
June 24th, 2021, the balance was $23.97.
This is the financial picture that they're establishing, that it was grim. Francis Gaston said, honestly, Emily, if it wasn't for you, I'd have stopped watching this trial. Me too. If I wasn't streaming it, no, I'd still be watching because now I'm invested and I want to know what happens.
Your Honor, this time
And I
I
don't
moved States
trust-
371 into evidence.
I don't trust media
No
reporting on
additional
it.
objection.
It's admitted.
Wouldn't Alec be the beneficiary to Maggie's estate? We have no evidence of that at this point. It's likely, but we don't have evidence of that. So, and my bank has a fit if I go $5 over my $500 overdraft. Most of
Almost
us.
done.
Is that a promise? Don't tease us, Creighton. When you say almost done, you better mean it. Can you explain to me what the state suggests is for motive? I'm confused. So am I. The state seems to have a moving target on what their thought is for motive, and I'm confused. I think their target for motive is everything was
Mr.
about to get unmasked and he
Malinowski.
needed the empathy, sympathy, the stalling.
If at any point in time, if the bank, over the years, at any point in time,
They have
has
not
become
made it clear
aware
that the beach house was hers, but it was.
that Alec Murdaugh was having a bank official take client trust money checks and convert them into cashier's checks and other
Hypothetical.
transactions for his own personal use, what would have happened?
Certainly would have
Not leading,
a
though.
significant conversation in the bank, and we would ask the bank official to stop doing that.
All right. And what would have happened
Would
if
turn them
you
over to the
uncovered
police.
that the defendant, Alec Murdaugh, was stealing client funds through that method?
That would have certainly affected his borrowing relationship with the bank and any other relationship he had with the
Would
bank.
they, if you found out the defendant was stealing, would you loan another dime to him?
No, sir.
If
Would you have
found
told
out
law
that the
enforcement?
defendant had created a fake business account in the name of a legitimate entity and was routing and stealing client money through
So
that
what is
account and converting
bank
it to his
fraud?
own personal use, at any point in time, what would have happened with his relationship at the bank?
It would have ceased.
Would the bank have loaned him
This goes
any
to the
more money?
motive.
No, sir.
If the bank found out that the defendant had been forced to resign or been fired from his job, what would have happened with his banking relationship? Would the bank have loaned him any more money after that?
No, sir.
Look, we're tying it
If the bank had found
together.
out at any point in time that he had been disbarred, what would have happened to that banking relationship with that defendant?
It would have ceased.
Okay, Creighton, that ties it together a little bit. Because of the boat case, all of this was about to be unearthed and the bank would have stopped loaning him money. Okay, that's starting to tie it together. If this had come to light on June 10th, it would have tumbled the house apart.
368.
How killing Maggie and Paul stops that from happening, we're not quite there yet. But that's where he's starting to tie it together.
What account number is that? What's the last four digits?
Oh,
of that
you should have
account number?
stopped there, my guy.
6092.
And on June 7th, what's the balance?
$2,185.23.
And this is why the boat case is on
Looking
Alex's
at
mind
Exhibit 356.
first and foremost.
What's the account number?
6092.
And yes, we're all cheering for the bare minimum
About
at this
the time.
point. I mean,
That applied for deposit comes in. What's the balance on August 6th, 2021?
On August 6, 2021, the balance is a negative $347,784.67.
oh my God, you've already said that, Creighton. You should have just stopped.
Hold on for me 1 second.
It just isn't confident. You've elicited that testimony of the overdraft 4 or 5 times now. The line of questioning tying it together,
Thank you, Mr. Malinowski.
Was
Please
good.
answer any questions the defense may have.
and he should have stopped there.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have you go to the jury room for a break. Please do not discuss the case.
Oh, we're taking a break. I don't have the music on my, I don't have music on this one today. So we're taking a break. I'm going to turn the volume down on that so it doesn't scare me. But we're taking a break. I'm going to answer some more questions. But let's just... Court's on break. I don't know for how long. The judge just walked off the bench, so maybe 10 minutes. The judge is like, fuck it, I'm out. I'm out. All of you have asked about my shirt. I think it's from Torrid. This is from the Lawnard shop. This is my Lawnard embroidered hoodie. Zip up, and this is with the hot pink heart, not the red heart. There's one of each. At the end of that testimony, what we were seeing from Creighton is if the bank had discovered everything that we know is about to happen, if the bank had discovered all of these things, then what would have happened? It would have stopped. Everything would have stopped. The banking relationships would have come to a halt. And he's $4 million owing to the bank. That's where we're at. They didn't tie in Maggie's beach house nearly enough for me. We'll see what they think. We still need to hear from Tinsley, the boat case lawyer. We still need to hear from Blanca, who was at Moselle that night, because if we don't, I don't know what I'm gonna do. We still haven't heard from Cousin Eddie. We still haven't heard from who else? Oh, the medical examiner, the coroner. So we have at least 4 or 5 witnesses that we have to hear from. So there's no way for me that the prosecution's done tomorrow. So with that, I think we've got at least a few more days of the prosecution's case. And then the defense case. The defense is going to have a number of experts, and then the prosecution has the opportunity to put on rebuttal witnesses. So I think we have at least, I think we've got at least another week at a minimum, maybe more. But I am so tired. This case gives me a headache. It's hard to follow. And it feels like the attorneys aren't confident in the testimony that they're eliciting to the jury. And by not being confident and by repeating the same evidence 4 and 5 times, that $347,000 overdraft has been repeated over and over and over, it starts to lose power. Trust that the jury understands what you're saying, but it feels like they don't trust that they're being clear. To be fair, they're not being clear at all, so maybe they're just self-aware. I don't know. It's been wild. So it's starting to become more clear, and I think this ordering of witnesses has actually been pretty good. We got into the emotional testimony with Tony Satterfield. They could have left him for last, I think, in this. They could have talked to Palmetto State Bank and then to Tinsley and then to Tony Satterfield, but that's their choice. But we still have the defense's case, and we're not done with the prosecution's case. And this is a much harder trial to follow. Not all trials are smooth. The defense did not waive time on this trial. The prosecutors took a year to indict it, but the defense did not waive time on this trial. That might be part of why it's disjointed, but that is on the prosecution. They get to choose when to indict. If they don't indict him, the clock doesn't start ticking. So they chose this timing for themselves, and they should have been ready to go to trial when they chose to indict him, knowing that these attorneys would probably push it to trial to catch the prosecution off guard and unprepared. And it feels unprepared. Things aren't redacted. There aren't summary exhibits. Things are very, very difficult. So, all right, let's go into more. The coroner has to testify. They have to prove that Maggie and Paul were actually killed by, by a person, or that they were actually killed. So the coroner has to testify at some point, unless the defense stipulates it. And the defense might stipulate to it. I don't think they will. No, they can't. Emily, what are you saying? No, they can't. The defense can't stipulate to it because the defense needs the timeline, and the coroner's timeline is going to be much broader than the prosecution timeline. So no, they can't stipulate to it. Some cases where there's no question of timeline, they will stipulate that the victim is deceased and not call the coroner. They can't do that. They need the timeline, and then I think the prosecution needs more detail on trajectory of bullets and things like that. So I don't think they can. I don't think they can avoid that. All right. You guys want to talk about what is going on Twitter? I'm going to read it one more time. I hear that there is an entire article on Fitz News about it. I haven't read that yet. But here's what we've got from Steve Norris on Twitter. Normally I would pull it up, but mobile setup is a little difficult. At Steve Norris TV said breaking news. And this was from 1:28 p.m. where I'm at. So half an hour ago. So all of you saw it as it was happening. Family warned they will next be thrown out of the courtroom for inappropriate behavior. They have now been moved from the front row behind Alec to the back row. Sources say improper communication and passing notes from the family to the defense has taken place. I think a lot of you clocked that yesterday because a lot of you mentioned it. Like, are they passing something? I saw it happen in the chat yesterday. We had a lot going on yesterday, but I saw that in the chat yesterday. And there's been a lot of casual communication between them, and everybody's just let it happen. So I'm not surprised they think they can just pass notes. I'm not shocked by that at all. Sources say improper communication and passing of notes from family to defendant has taken place. Additionally, obscene gesture, middle finger. Did I need to? I'm sorry. We're international communications. It was the finger. Yes, I just default into movie quotes. My brain is very tired of this trial. Additionally, an obscene gesture, we were giving him the finger, was given from son Buster Murdaugh to testifying witness lawyer Mark Tinsley. That would have been yesterday. I have so many questions. I hope Mark Tinsley gives all the interviews when he's done testifying about this. I want to know. When asked to move back of courtroom by security, Buster is reported to have kicked over a water bottle. To be fair, that could have been an accident if he was asked to move and he's trying to shuffle his feet to get up. I could see me doing something like that too. Sister Lynn allegedly passed a note to Alec's lawyer to pass to Alec. Lawyers should know better. Brothers Randy and John Marvin have not been an issue. Next step for offending Murdaugh family members is to be removed from the courtroom for the remainder of the trial. So that is coming from Steve Norris, who is a journalist there locally. So interesting stuff. I'm hearing that there's a Fitz News article on it. I haven't read that yet. We're going to get to some more questions, but I'm not surprised at all. I'm not surprised. I've gotten a lot of questions about this, KCL, a lot, and I see them. I've gotten a number of super chats about this as well. I did not see that Shelley the caretaker had started a GoFundMe. I don't know if that's actually their GoFundMe. I've not verified it. I don't know that that's a GoFundMe. Can this get her testimony thrown out? No. What happens after her testimony is not an issue. So no, I don't see how that would impact her testimony unless there's something more nefarious there. But the simple fact of a GoFundMe, if it is their GoFundMe, is not something that I'm worried about. So, and again, I don't know if there's a GoFundMe. I don't know if it's a legitimate GoFundMe. I have not researched it. I always worry when there's cases of this profile that people, the internet will internet, and people will start fake things. So if that is something you go looking for, just make sure you verify it for yourself, because people start fake GoFundMe pages when there are cases of national news and international news. Emily, will you be watching the behavior panel? I don't know what the behavior panel has recently done, but probably not for a few days, just based on busy. Have you watched the behavior panel and their assessment of Alec's interview with Sled in the truck? They believe he did the murders. I have not watched it. How many more witnesses on each list? Well, we're in the 30s for the state, and they had over 200 on their witness list. They're not going to get to them all, but they had over 200 on their witness list. If this trial were one of the multi-night miniseries from the 1980s, it would still be going on. Okay, this trial is definitely feeling like a miniseries. Did you notice the last witness was nervously twitching the shoulders and neck? I had not noticed that. The last witness looked stressed. Emily, what are your thoughts on the GoFundMe? We talked about that. Ermay's mom said, I just saw you in a commercial. What commercial? And let me know, because I don't know. It depends on what it's for. It could be a lot of things. There's a number of documentaries that I've contributed to, so I wouldn't be surprised if it was for one of those. Behavior panel just went over Alec's first interview. I have not seen it. At this point, do you think the prosecution is using this trial as practice for the financial trials? That would be completely inappropriate, but they definitely love getting those financial crimes, and you can tell. Question, could the defense try to show that Mr. Satterfield was a motive as well, revenge, just to prove doubt? I mean, the defense, I think, has at this point a lot of doubt going for them, because there is a lot of questions still. But all the financial crimes and all the owing money to people is going to lean towards the defense saying, it could have been anyone. He owed everybody money. They were mad at him about the boat case. They're mad at him about the Satterfield case. But the Satterfield son didn't know he had been stolen from the date of the murders. So I think that timing is important. Why can the defense do character but not the prosecution? I think the prosecution was given the room to talk about character because they can rebut what the defense brings up. And then they grumpied the bed by not arguing that limiting instruction, because the defense snuck character into that limiting instruction and the prosecution didn't do shit about it. So they did that to themselves. That's an error on their part, an unforced error. That's, as Runkle would say, that is an own goal right there. Katie said, do we know how he was getting the opioids prior to all this? No. We have no idea. No idea. And nothing came up about the opioids until Jim and Poot did a press conference about it when he was arrested on all the financial crimes, and then they wanted him to be in rehab, not custody. So, Teresa said, he breaks my heart. This is talking about Tony Satterfield. I wish I could reach through the phone and give him a hug. There are a number of witnesses I wanted to hug this trial. Will he ever receive any of his money? He has received, or at least a judgment for it, from Eric Bland, but I don't know where that is being funded from. Doesn't this show that Alec Murdaugh would go to any lengths to enrich himself? It does, and that is character evidence. So if the prosecution's allowed to argue it, we will see. They should have been allowed to argue it, but CEG, the fucked up instruction. Jackie said, I understand what is meant by telling the witness he is not sophisticated in the law, rubbed me the wrong way. I feel like some people in the jury would feel the same. Everyone in the chat felt the same. Everyone in the chat felt the same. It was the way he said it, truly. Regarding the laughter in court, is the audience a bunch of AM's cronies trying to support, intimidate, bully? I think there are those that are charmed by Dick. Mandy Matney, who has been reporting on this family for 4 years now, tweeted something out earlier that I was going to share because it is, I think, important. So give me a second to find where that is real quick. But she had thoughts for sure about everybody kind of falling all over Harpootlian. And this I've seen in cases I've been in person on too. This is something I've experienced in just working in courts and being a litigator. Murdaugh trial, and this is from Mandy Batney on Twitter. Every time the courtroom casually laughs along with Dick Harpootlian, I remember the one time in court he made a sexist comment about me and the media giggled along with him. My stomach hurts. This is his shtick. This is part of his shtick. He's also a politician, and this is part of his charm the room around him and make these little jokes in the middle of a double homicide trial where his client's on trial for murder, and to make these little cracks to kind of get the jury on his side. And we did hear people giggling. So what was the comment he made about Mandy Matney? I don't know. But I saw this in the Britney Spears case where the attorneys are yelling about the reporters and the media and what they're saying. Mandy, look, when we talk about Edelson PC filing the lawsuit against Tom Girardi and his law firm and partners, that was the thing that pulled down the house of cards. Mandy Matney pulling the string on the Satterfield case is really what started bringing attention to all of this. She was the one who found the court documents and started reporting on them. So, and that's where all of this started. So that's what it is. He's not charming in my opinion. And the thing is, people do the courtroom does laugh along with him. So there are some, there are definitely some that thought it was funny or whatever he said. He's kind of like, oh, I'm just this old guy, blah, 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 blah. So that's that. I'm going to try to get to a few more questions. We are still on break. Let's see. If he did have a drug issue, would he have health issues? I have no idea, and there's no evidence of that. So we will see. I know a lot of the chat doesn't find him charming, but if they do in court, that can impact the jury, because if they're all kind of laughing along with his little jokes, it shows the jury that he's not such a bad guy. He's not such a bad guy. So I don't know what he said about Mandy Matney, and I don't know if she'll clarify that, but we'll see. Emily said, if I'm in that jury, I'm not listening to anything the defense has to say for the rest of the day, and I'm all focused on how disgusting that was, talking about the cross-examination of Tony Satterfield. Question, is this trial really that bad, or are we spoiled from Depp v. Heard? No, this is that bad. This is that bad, because even though Brooks was extreporous and Brooks was a difficult defendant, that trial was not as disjointed feeling as this. And this feels disjointed because the prosecution's disjointed. It just is. They do not present their case clearly. But Annie A said, I'm not seeing AM guilt. And we're not at guilt yet. We've got a few things, and we've definitely got some threads, and we've got a lot of questions. We're not beyond the questions yet. Question, do you think it's possible for the prosecution to put all this together at some point? We'll see. We'll see if they do. I don't know. They've started to, but we'll see. So we'll see. Michael Peppertech, good to see you. You can see the overwhelming discussion of financial crimes, but don't let this distract you that we are here for a murder trial, but the prosecution is yet to focus and prove that defense. Yeah, and I think they're going to use it. The defense is going to use it to their advantage. They're going to get up in closing and be like, we've had days of checks and paper and hundreds of exhibits of checks and paper, but what do we have on who killed Maggie and Paul? It's an easy argument for them to make, and the prosecution has leaned right into it. They're going to say that, look, if I'm the defense, I'm going to argue they were looking to pin this on Alec Murdaugh so badly that they had the FBI spend a year to crack the car to see if it was in park or not. They spent a year to crack the car to see if it was in park because they have no other evidence other than the car being in park and out of park. That's their murder case. That's why they're trying to pin it on Alec. That's why this is a rush to judgment. And they're pissed off because of all these financial crimes. And those financial crimes are gross. And I don't know if the defense can even argue that because they got up at the beginning and said, we're honored to represent him. They shouldn't have done that because it forestalls this argument. The argument should be, yes, he's done things. Yes, he's stolen. Yes, he's lied. They needed to lean into, yes, all that stuff is really shitty, but he's not a murderer. And we know he's not a murderer because the state had to get the FBI to crack a fucking car to get whether or not it was in park. Because that's all the evidence they have. That's what you focus on. And the prosecution's going to focus on, he lied about being at the kennels every single time. It wasn't because he was nervous talking to police. He lied about being at the kennels because he didn't know about the Snapchat video. He lied. He lied about flipping over Paul. He's too clean. He lied. He wanted Shelley Smith to lie for him and said, if anyone asks, I was here for 30 to 40 minutes. He lied. He lied and he lied and he lied and he lied. He stole from his clients. It was all crumbling down and he would do anything. I don't know if it's going to make sense to everybody, but a lot of times murders don't make sense to us because most of us are like, well, killing someone seems real fucking extreme. So that's not going to make sense. You know, it's not a case where there's, you know, a car accident or what have you, and you're like, this is how that happened. This is a cold-blooded homicide. So it's just wild. Emily, do you believe that Sled should be investigated because of how they handled this? I don't know yet. I haven't thought about it enough. I don't know yet. I'll think about it more, but I don't know yet. It looks like court is just coming back. Thank you all for letting me know. We're going to pull this up. See, I turned down the
page, which was made shortly after it first went up last night.
I turned down the
was
volume.
made by attorney Mark Tinsley, who paid her $1,000, presumably following the description of this in consideration of her testimony.
The defense.
Your Honor, I have.
Hold on. We're backing up. The defense is bringing up the GoFundMe.
Shortly after.
The defense is bringing up the GoFundMe. Hold on, we're gonna back up.
Mark Tinsley's.
My bad. We'll speed it back up when we need to. But the defense is bringing up the GoFundMe. Oh shit.
Okay, yes, sir.
Well, this just got more interesting.
This is something new that has come up, Your Honor.
Oh shit.
I'm sure Your Honor recalls the testimony of Shelley Smith this Monday.
Oh shit.
And her testimony was, let's say, somewhat malleable. We've discovered late last night that a GoFundMe page was set up for Ms. Smith, soliciting donations until the wording was changed during the testimony of the last witness. It read that my mother was caretaker for Alec Murdaugh's mom. She recently had to testify against him, and goes on to say, I want to reward her for her bravery and honesty. The very first donation made on this GoFundMe page, which was made shortly after it first went up last night, was made by attorney Mark Tinsley, who paid her $1,000, presumably following the description of this in consideration of her testimony.
Oh shit! No, he did
Your Honor,
not.
I have, if you want, printouts of the screenshot showing that. Shortly after Mark Tinsley's name actually appeared as the donor for $1,000. He removed his name, and it now appears as anonymous. But I'm told the Attorney General has confirmed with Mr. Tinsley that he admits he did make this payment to the witness in the middle of trial, who is still under subpoena.
Mark Tinsley, what the fuck?
Your Honor, and therefore, the defense would move to exclude his testimony. And,
On what basis?
Your Honor, the legal standard here is difficult to find. I cannot, searching Westlaw, find a single case.
Because it seems shady, Your Honor.
Has put tries to put to the jury a lawyer who has already testified he has a direct financial interest in the outcome of this case, who is also making monetary payments to prosecution witnesses during the trial.
Yeah, it looks real bad. That
Your
looks
Honor,
real
I
bad.
believe that this is a question of first impression.
Yeah,
And
this is a
because it's
question of first impression.
I understand that the facts here in this case are disturbing, but because it's a question of first impression,
Shit.
I would respectfully urge the court to
Declare
keep in mind
mistrial?
the aphorism that bad facts make bad law. You know, a prosecutor, to my knowledge, to Westlaw's knowledge, has never before done this.
What's improper about what he did?
About what Mr. Tinsley did?
Yes.
He made a financial payment to a witness in the middle of a trial that he has a financial interest in the outcome of. He has testified. He was under subpoena. She's still under subpoena. He made a $1,000 payment as a reward for her honesty, testifying
Tinsley
in
has
the matter
confirmed that he did
has
this.
testified that he has a direct financial interest in.
Well, that would be good fodder for cross-examination.
Your Honor, I respect the court's ruling.
I'm not going to strike his testimony. It may be good fodder for cross-examination.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Your Honor.
Yes.
One other issue, given the testimony in the in-camera proceedings, we would ask that he be precluded from offering testimony about focus groups on the verdict for the beach matter.
No,
speculation
that
about
matters.
fixing a jury in Hampton County. These matters don't go to the motive purpose that his testimony is being offered for, and would be prejudicial.
Well,
Oh,
I'm loath to attempt to screen testimony in advance.
Oh, my
Lawyers
God.
ask questions, lawyers object, judges rule.
lawyers
So
don't object. No one objects in this
you-
case.
sounded a warning to the state that you object to that testimony, and
Y'all,
if such a question is asked and an objection is made, then I will rule on the objection.
oh my God. Oh my God.
Anything else?
From the state, Your Honor.
Bring the jury. Holy shit. Okay. So the defense said that witness Shelley Smith set up a GoFundMe, which the chat has been asking me about all day. Could this impact the trial? I didn't think the fact of the GoFundMe would impact a trial, but I didn't think a witness who had not yet to testify would actually donate to that GoFundMe before he fucking testified. The appearance of impropriety is wild. So it has been confirmed that attorney Mark Tinsley donated to Shelley Smith for her testimony, making it look like he is paying a witness for her testimony. Oh my God, he's the next witness up. This is going to get real spicy, but this is a mess. And they're like, this is a matter of first impression. Yes, this is a mess. And he could have waited till after trial. And then after it was brought up, he went in and changed his name. And the judge is like, what did he do that's wrong?
Cross-examination.
Please, the court.
Yes, sir.
Oh, that is.
Good afternoon, Mr. Malinowski.
Why would Tinsley do that? That's not good.
The
Oh my God.
$750,000
Stop your cross-examination. Put Mark Tinsley on the stand. We don't fucking care about Palmetto State Bank anymore.
July of 2021.
We've moved on.
That was
We've
approved
moved
by
on.
3 members of the executive committee, was it not?
Yes, sir.
And the 3 members that approved that loan were Mr. Charlie
What a
Lafitte,
fucking mess. I'm shook.
Mr. Russell Lafitte,
I need to make notes.
and Ms. Gray Henderson. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And Mr. Charlie Lafitte was chairman of the board of
I'm
the
stunned.
Palmetto State Bank at the time. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
He's the largest shareholder of Palmetto State Bank?
Him individually, no.
He wasn't the largest individual?
No.
Did he own 30% of the bank?
Not individually, no.
Okay. And then his son was Russell Lafitte?
That's correct?
And his daughter was Gray Henderson?
Correct?
And it was his position that if Alec Murdaugh wanted a loan from Palmetto State Bank, that the bank would loan him the money. Is that correct?
That was his opinion.
And Alec Murdaugh was a member of PMPED law firm. You're aware of that at the time?
Yes, sir.
And PMPED law firm was
Oh, my God.
one of the most, largest customers of the bank.
It was a large customer of the bank.
And the
Rob, just back
partners
up
in the
10
firm
minutes. Rob, just
all
back
had
up 10
banking
minutes.
relationships with the bank.
Rewind till right
I'm
after
aware
the
that
break.
many did, yes.
Because
And oftentimes
come back.
when
just rewind and come back.
members of the law firm had clients who needed to borrow money before they got recoveries in their case, the partners from the firm would send them to the bank, and the bank would loan money on future recoveries. Are you aware of that?
Yes, I am.
And so the firm was good business for the bank.
It was a good customer.
And the bank, in turn, provided good services to the members of the firm.
Yes, sir.
And if it meant, getting a loan in a rush without
I'm so distracted.
having all the I's dotted and the T's crossed, I mean, that would happen. Isn't that right?
Not to that magnitude, no.
Well, it certainly happened with Mr. Alec Murdaugh and
I should throw my shoe at the prosecution.
July
I would throw
of
a shoe at Mark
2021,
Tinsley
right?
At the moment.
I believe in August of 2021.
well, the loan was made, the money was provided to Mr. Alec Murdaugh in July of 2021, right?
$350,000 was provided with that wire transfer.
The GoFundMe's not a problem for me. It's Mark
And
Tinsley
the,
donating to it.
And the
Is
documentation
the
was
problem.
essentially loan not on the books, or what's the acronym?
Loans not on system, LNOS.
Right. But it's a loan, it's just not on the system.
Yes, Anna, yes.
It's an advance from a general ledger
They're going to
account.
drag this out so they can investigate
To
it
be
more.
documented
roast
as a
Tinsley.
loan down the road.
Yes.
One would
That's
hope,
absolutely
yes,
right.
sir.
And that's what happened here
Eventually,
in August.
in August.
Now, Alec didn't work for the bank, did he?
No, sir.
He didn't represent the bank, did he?
To my knowledge, no.
Holy shit, I'm so distracted.
He was just a good customer of the bank, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And the bank treated him like a good customer because that was in the bank's interest.
Yes, sir.
Now, you said something on direct that I want to follow up on. And my notes say that after the tragic murder of Maggie and Paul, that the bank undertook a loan review of Alec's loans. Is that right?
In response to the August 9th
I'll be right
email,
back.
yes, sir.
I have to run to the restroom.
Well, the
I'm
August 9th
overwrought and
email
I've
was
had too much
triggered
coffee.
because of Maggie and Paul's murders?
That and other information, yes, sir.
Okay. And what other information?
I think Mr. Norris Lafitte had asked some questions or had conversations.
Well, we're all
with
awake now, aren't
individuals
we?
and Wanted to know the full
We are
accounting of the
awake.
bank's relationship.
Okay. And one of the factors that Mr. Norris Lafitte included was he had just lost his wife and son, and let's take a look at it, at his standing with the bank, loans outstanding, et
I think
cetera.
that's a fair statement, yes, sir.
Okay. Up until June 7th, 2021, the bank was not examining Alec's loans, were they?
We're not scrutinizing them, no, sir.
Yeah. He did he and Maggie had a loan review from the bank, whether they knew it or not, back in July 10th of 2020, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to show you Defense Exhibit 91 and ask if this is the loan review that was done, documented to the Executive Committee on July 10th, 2020.
Yes, this is a copy of a loan review prepared by Gray Henderson, the relationship summary of Alec Murdaugh and Maggie Murdaugh,
Thank you. And what's the date?
2020.
July 2020. Your Honor, I would move defendants exhibit 91 in evidence at this time.
Submit it.
Just put the front page up there. And so, Doug, go down so we can see the, keep going, there you go. So to the executive committee, on July 10th, 2020, who was on the executive committee with the bank?
At that time, Charlie Lafitte, Russell Lafitte, Gray Henderson, myself, I believe Scott Swain was on it at that time.
And it's a 5-member executive committee?
Yes, sir.
And I think you mentioned earlier that did it take the majority of the committee to approve loans over a certain amount?
Sitting in a meeting, yes, sir.
Excuse me?
In a meeting, yes, sir.
Okay.
This is going to get thrown out to the end of today.
And Gray Henderson
This is why we can't stop
preparing this loan
watching.
review for,
Jamila, we can't stop watching because you never know when shit's going
Alec
to fucking
Murdaugh,
pop
right?
off.
Yes, sir.
it says Richard Alexander, Alec Murdaugh, is a lifetime resident of Hampton County. He and his wife, Margaret B. Maggie, recently
judge was smiling about
sold
the
their
drama.
home in Hampton and moved their permanent residence to their farm in Islandton. Alec is a respected partner with Peters, Murdaugh, Parker, Ellsroth, and Dietrich law firm. They are currently involved in a wrongful death suit involving their youngest son, Paul.
Greg said the
and
only
a
real
voting
surprise
accident.
here is that
The
it happened
case
while
is still
Emily was
pending.
not on a plane. Fair.
So that was the background. on
No,
this.
it
That
happened
was a
last
general
night.
summary of current situation.
It happened last
And
night.
then-
This happened last night. I was on a plane when
And
this
the-
happened. They discovered it and talked about it
financials,
today. But it went
related
down
to-
last night.
To their tax returns and whatnot, is that correct?
She's just stating in there that what financial information we have on file.
Okay. And then you go
It's like a
through-
baseball game, 3 minutes of action packed
Outstanding
into 3
loan,
hours
is
of
that right?
boredom.
It's a summary of the loan, yes,
Accurate.
sir.
Okay, and the first loan is
All I want to do is talk about that. All I want
can you
to
tell
all
us
I want to
what
do is
that
talk about that.
Williams Island on St. Helena?
I'm surprised they didn't ask for a mistrial.
We had
They
a
don't really have
loan, I
grounds for
believe
it, but I'm
that that
surprised they didn't
loan,
ask.
Was a
They
joint
asked to
loan.
exclude his testimony. They
with
might ask
a
more
gentleman by
tomorrow.
the name of Barrett Bowler, secured by 2 or 3 little islands off St. Helena.
And that loan's in good standing? Says
All payments made as agreed, yes, sir.
Okay.
Just let him answer.
Now, the
man.
next loan is a loan that's the Edisto Beach House, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And here it says that the home appraised for $440 in February of 2016, and current balance on the note was $206,000. This is in July of 2020, is that right?
That's what it says, yes, sir.
And it says they've been 30 days late 3 times. I think that's what it says.
Yes, sir.
I guess if you go over 30 days on your loan payment, that's a strike against you when
It gets noticed.
it gets noticed.
Yes, Rob. That. Shelley Smith
That,
is still
that
under
house at
subpoena.
Edisto, the bank had a mortgage on it dating back at least for
The
some
fact
time,
of
right?
the GoFundMe,
Yes, sir.
And you know it
if she
recently
testifies
sold.
again, comes up, aren't you benefiting
house.
from this?
And do you know the sale price?
I don't think she would
it
testify
was
again.
Just below $1 million.
Him donating is the bigger problem.
So the bank's in a pretty good position here in July 2020 with
I'm flabbergasted.
$200,000 on what sold a couple of years later for $1 million, right?
Well, many years later, but yes.
How many years later?
Well, I think it occurred in 2022, and this is in 2020.
2 years then?
2
Go with
years.
that?
Yeah, I'll go with that.
Ole said
Too many?
one 30-day meeting late
Real estate market,
is
2
not a
years.
huge deal. However, multiple
Be a long
30-day
time.
lates
All
in a
right,
12-month
then,
period
then the
is,
next
yes.
loan is, first mortgage on, I don't know what you're doing there, Doug. It's on,
Do it, Doug!
856 acres, and the second mortgage on 914 acres. That's the Moselle property, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And what's the outstanding balance of that loan?
$719,769.16.
And what
Mark
kind of
should have
value
known
do you have
better.
there?
Mark should have known better. I agree.
Good value in it. If the appraisal is $3.3 million.
Now, you know, there's a contract on that property today?
I understand.
Kimmy, I
that.
appreciate your
You know what it
restraint.
is?
No, sir, I don't.
I understand the caps
You know
rule,
it's more than 3.3?
but what the
I don't know
actual,
that.
yeah, WTF. You can all caps WTF.
Bank still has a mortgage on it?
If you spell it all out, Nightbot will
Okay.
grab you.
You turn the page, Doug?
But yeah, what
That's
WTF?
the last one on there.
Law and Lumber, I'll tell you what I think Mark Tinsley was thinking, because we
And
saw
here's
Mark
another
Tinsley's
loan.
arrogance in his testimony too. These attorneys
And I
have all
guess
been
that's part
measuring
of the
dick
same,
in their
it's
testimony.
that's another tract at Moselle with additional, was that the same loan? Are we talking about a new loan here?
I believe
For
we
me,
are,
Tinsley's
yes.
the problem.
Okay, and what is this?
Tinsley's
This
behavior is the
balance
problem.
is $888,527.08.
Okay.
At lunch, or
And what's
at
the
break.
value
At break,
we have
I'll
on
explain.
this?
Assume it's the Moselle, $3.3 million from the preceding loan.
Okay,
Two mortgages on the single property.
all right.
Or the acreage.
Lori said maybe someone faked him.
And
No.
then the conclusion here, the summary is Alec and Maggie Murdaugh are
The
longtime customers
Attorney General
of Palmetto State
verified
Bank.
that he did it.
They've had some late payments, but in my opinion, those are
He
mainly
verified
due
he
to
did
Alex
it.
being hard to reach and set appointments to sign the paperwork. The majority of his payments are set up on an annual basis because the law firm makes their distributions in December. Now, let me ask you about that. Were you aware that a lot of the partners at the law firm who owe money to Palmetto State Bank just pay once a year because that's really when the bulk of their income is generated or received?
The investigation
my
into Stephen
understanding,
Smith's
that's
death
correct.
is open.
And so this was not
So yes, they can look
special
into
just
it.
to
They are.
Alec, but it's not, but other partners at the firm have the same payment plan.
You're setting up the repayment to coincide with the receipt of their income or the bulk of the income.
Sure. And it says, the Murdaughs have always paid their loans to the bank, and I do not see that changing. And it says, depending on the outcome of the pending lawsuit, they may have to liquidate some assets, but our loans are more than sufficiently collateralized.
Rob, they have to put
Meaning
them on. They
You've
have to.
got plenty of security, is that
They
right?
have
In
to put them
2020,
on.
yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
They have to put Tinsley on. We'll talk about this after this testimony because they are doing a good cross-examination and we're all distracted. I get it. I'm distracted. I'm so distracted. I don't care about this
Alec-
cross-examination at all right now. We will talk
Maggie,
about it
have-
at the break. That's exactly
Your
what I'll
knowledge,
address.
never
at the
been
break.
turned down for a
So
loan
just-
at Palmetto State
I
Bank?
promise,
My knowledge, they
we'll
have
get there.
not.
After this witness. We
Now,
got
there
like
were
half
some
hour
loans
left.
that-
Just hang in there, guys.
That
can-
were
We can do it.
written off, as you said,
We can put a
charged
pin in
on.
it real quick.
where Alec was a member of a
Y'all can talk about it in the chat.
partnership, LLC, some sort of structure where there were other partners involved, and that those loans went in default, is that right?
Yes, sir.
I just won't,
But
I'm not going to talk about it till the
Alec
break. Yeah, at the end of the day. That's what I mean. At the end of the day, I
kept
will talk
paying
about
on
it.
those notes, did he not?
It's so early
Periodically,
here, it
he'd
feels
make
like it's not
payments.
the end of the day.
Did any of the other partners in Redbeard or United, were they making payments?
To my knowledge, no.
To your knowledge, it was only Alec that was making the payments?
Yes.
Redbeard wasn't making the payments. Wendy asked the chat, can't
To your
decide on dinner,
knowledge, is
Chinese
there
food or
any
Mexican
reason in the
food.
world
I say Mexican food.
for Alec to believe that in June of 2021, if he needed additional money from Palmetto State Bank, that he couldn't just go down there and talk to Russell Lafitte or Charlie Lafitte?
Mark
And
Tinsley's
ask for
going
a
to make
loan?
me take my earrings off.
In June of 2021,
Yes, sir.
I don't see any reason why he couldn't have that conversation with Charlie and Russell.
And he had, to your knowledge, never put on any notice that your business is not welcome here at Palmetto State Bank in June of 2021, is that right?
In June of 2021, that's correct.
In June of 2021, the bank is fully collateralized on the outstanding notes.
With the exception of the one where he was a co-borrower, I believe, with his father. I think that was an unsecured loan.
And his father being Randolph Murdaugh.
The third, yes, sir.
The third, yes. One second, Your Honor.
I promise we will talk more about what's going on with Tinsley and the GoFundMe. We will revisit. I promise we will revisit at the break. Chat, y'all are making me hungry. I'm
Further
gonna.
questions, Your Honor?
Redirect.
Very briefly, Your Honor.
Oh, we're almost done. Maybe we'll be done for the day, and then we can talk. We need to talk about We need to talk about.
You're
the
asking
team.
about whether Alec made some year-end payments on some of those charged-off loans, correct?
Yes, sir.
And your review was some of that money that was used to make those payments ultimately converted money from client funds?
I believe so, yes.
That's why he was stealing to pay it off.
You were asked whether or not in June of 2021, whether Alec could have talked to Charlie Lafitte or Russell Lafitte about another loan. Is that right?
In June of 2021, yes.
In June of 2021. At that point in time, had it come out that he had been stealing client funds for years?
No, sir.
Had it come out that he had been disbarred?
No, sir.
Had it come out that he had been diverting fees from his law firm?
No, sir.
Had it come out that he had been forced to resign from his law firm?
No, sir.
If any other things had come out, would the bank continue to have loaned him money?
No, sir.
Creighton, you already did this.
Mr. Griffin asked you if Alec had been a good customer. Correct?
Yes, sir.
When all of this crashed and burned, was the bank left holding the bag for all these uncollected loans,
Yes, sir.
including the $750,000?
Yes, sir.
Nothing further, thank you.
Are we done? Can we be done? There's like 15 minutes left of the day.
Mr. Malinowski, the bank had mortgages on the properties that we just went over, did it not?
They did.
And those mortgages didn't disappear when Alec Murdaugh, when all this came to light, did they?
No, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Step down.
Thank you.
I can't zoom too much because I
You call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. State calls Mark Tinsley.
Oh, fucking hell. I'm going to fast forward to try to catch up to real time real quick. All right. I don't have my air horn. Air horn noise.
Do you affirm the testimony about your
Air horn noise.
the truth, so help you God?
Air horn noise.
State your name again for the record. Spell your last name, please.
Afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Mark Tinsley, Tinsley.
Okay. They're not going to get to cross today, though.
Mr. Tinsley, how you doing today?
Good.
Introduce yourself to the jury a little bit. Please tell them a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, where you went to school, and a little bit about your profession, please.
Sure. I said my name's Mark Tinsley. I'm a lawyer. I practice in Allendale. I've been there since about 2000. I'm originally from...
Mr. Tinsley, get that mic a little bit closer to you.
Since
well,
we've already
the
heard
mic's
his
short,
testimony
and my knees
some,
apparently are long because this is the most uncomfortable place to sit.
You can bend it down a little bit, maybe.
it is
Yeah.
uncomfortable.
I'm from Anderson originally. I went to Clemson. I carried an orange book bag when I was at Carolina. I went to law school there. I graduated in '98. I worked in Columbia for a couple of years doing
Carried an orange book
primarily
bag.
insurance defense work. You've heard a lot of plaintiffs' lawyers.
This'll
So I would
catch
have
up.
been one of the lawyers representing an insurance company that was hired to or had the coverage on somebody who was getting sued, or I would have dealt with coverage. Is a specific loss covered or something? So that's primarily what I did for the first 2 years. One of my good friends was originally from Barnwell. I made my way to Allendale in 2000, and I've been there ever since.
And so since Barnwell, have you been in a law firm? You've been in practice? Tell us a little more about that.
I have.
When we catch up, this
I
will slow
practice with
back
Gooding and
down.
Gooding. When you live in a small town, you do all kinds of things. I have the luxury of having a,
Oh, yeah,
a
he had to
successful
let
practice and
everyone
being able
know
to go to different places.
that when he
and
went to
handle
USC for law
cases. I
school,
try
he still
cases.
carried his orange book bag.
I try truck wrecks. I try highway defect cases where there's something wrong with the way that the contractor had.
Oh, yeah, he's definitely trying to be
not really
charming.
designed the road, but maintained the road, and somebody gets catastrophically injured. I've tried bad faith cases where an insurance company has coverage, but for some reason or another, they don't do what they were supposed to do under the
I didn't hear
contract,
that.
and their insured gets harmed as a result or suffers a loss. And so, I pick and choose, but when you're in a small town, you help people. And so I end up doing all kinds of things. There's no case that's too small, no case that's too big. If I can help you, I try to help you.
All right.
If I can
Over
help
the
you, I
years
try to
being a
help
lawyer
you.
doing this kind of work in this area, have you had call to get to know the lawyers and what used to be known as PMPED?
I have. There's only 17 miles basically between Allendale and Hampton, small bars. At one time, I think there were really only 4, maybe 5 lawyers in
I'll
Allendale.
go back and look.
About twice, maybe it ultimately gets up to 3 or 4 times that many in Hampton, but it's a small bar. And I had occasion to work with, you saw Ronnie Crosby, I think, yesterday. I've handled a number of cases with Ronnie
I've
Crosby.
sped this up a little
You've
so we
heard
can
Lee
catch
Cope's
up to
name
real
mentioned.
time.
I've had cases with Lee Cope, but I knew everybody.
All right. And did that include the defendant, Alec Murdaugh?
It does.
And how long have you known him?
It's hard. I heard Chris Wilson this morning. I don't remember exactly. I came in 2000.
They
I
zoomed in
always
on
remember
Buster,
him being there.
who allegedly
so
flipped
sometime shortly
Tinsley off
after I came
tomorrow
to
or yesterday.
practice in the 14th Circuit.
And do you see him in courtroom here today?
Sure. He's immediately to the right of Mr. Harpootlian.
Could the record reflect he's identified the defendant? Over the years, as you knew Alec Murdaugh, did you ever do anything professionally, either with him or against him?
I hate to be a lawyer, Mr. Waters. I have, I had a case where a defendant was in default and Alec was a special referee, meaning you may remember Chris Wilson said in that Mack truck case, one of the defendants didn't answer, and so if you get sued and you don't respond at the right time, then you're in default. And so the other side, by default, wins, generally. And Alec was my special referee, meaning this guy had been accused of selling some property under lien. He was arrested at his job, and we sued a company.
Oh, these
called
witnesses
Southern
all watch
Finance,
each other testify.
incidentally.
There's no
And
exclusion
then-
order.
it's a
I
long,
know it's
complicated
weird.
story, but
I know it's
We
weird.
got reversed, and so I didn't do that again. And
But
then,
just generally, have you had, go ahead.
well, yeah, I mean, but I didn't handle cases with Alec. I didn't, unlike, say, Ronnie or Lee Cope, and we just didn't have that sort of relationship. I guess he and I did so much of the same thing. I don't recall a time over the last 20 years where we worked on a case together.
They were zooming in on Buster.
Being a small bar and doing the same kind of thing, though, y'all are generally familiar with one another and the type of cases y'all were handling and that sort of thing?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a small bar, and you go to the roster meetings, you know what everybody's doing, you see what cases they have. Yeah, absolutely. You know if they have a success, a big case, or a failure.
You ever been in court when Alec was doing a closing argument?
Yes, probably a couple of times. There was.
We'll be caught up to
he
live
tried a case
soon.
in Allendale. It was the first case.
And then we'll slow back down.
I think it was 98 that the Allendale courthouse
There it
burned.
is.
The story is that Judge Peoples from Barnwell was going to sentence some guy for a drug offense. and Judge
Objection,
Peoples was
relevance.
Very strict on drug offenses, and so the guys who were going to be sentenced on Monday decided Sunday would be a good day to burn the courthouse. So they burned the courthouse, and so many months later, I think Judge Peoples ended up sentencing them.
Good.
At any rate,
Yeah, because it's fucking
they rebuilt
irrelevant.
the courthouse, and so the first case that was tried in 2005, Alec tried, and I was there when he made his closing argument.
You were present when he did the closing on that?
I was.
Oh, Tinsley's loving this. I think he
Did you get
loves.
emotional during that closing?
He cried.
Relevance.
He cried during closing.
Your Honor, I think this is just relevant to the
Demeanor.
defendant and his practice as a lawyer, background information, and I think there's been
Demeanor.
a lot put in issue about the defense about that as well, and I think this is fair from this witness.
We're in the year 2000.
2005, it was March of 2005, it was,
Same position.
Too far in time.
Let me ask you just a little bit about, though, being in this kind of type of work.
Oh, yeah, they
in
hate Mark Tinsley.
For a
It
small
seems that
bar,
Alec
a small
hates him.
area. You said y'all are generally familiar with what each other are doing, who do similar work.
I think so.
And when you're, are there any sort of documentation at the court, jury rosters, anything like that, or rosters that you can pay attention to and have an idea of what each other's doing?
Well, I mean, it is a roster, it is a list of cases. Generally, a case comes up for trial, not in civil cases I'm talking about. Supposed to be about a year old, it's usually longer than that, but they go on this list. And so come Monday morning, all the lawyers would show up, there's 100 cases, and so you see what's coming up, who has what cases, and
Oh, Tinsley's ready to
in
fight. That's, I
particular,
think, where
Elliott
this
usually
pacing
had,
is
seemed
coming
like
from. Tinsley's ready to
majority
fight.
of the cases on the Hampton roster.
Remember, they were
His
friends.
name would be on them anyway.
And Tinsley said he would burn Alec's house down over the Mallory
And
Beach case. And Tinsley
Being a
was
small
coming
bar
for him.
and being, part of that, kind of doing the similar work, is it not uncommon for you to have some knowledge of some of those cases and for others to have knowledge of the cases you're working on?
Sure, lawyers are the biggest gossips in the world. I mean,
Facts.
everybody knew what everybody was doing.
Lawyers are the biggest
If you see a
gossips
case
in the
that's
world.
on there and then it gets removed or disappears, does that indicate anything to you?
No, I mean, it indicates they were settled, but oftentimes, when you go through the roster, there's actually a notation.
Lawyers
the
know
case
everybody's
is settled,
business.
the judge will sign
Or
what's
they
called a
want to.
form order, which just administratively disposes of it, takes it off the roster so that it doesn't stay on that list.
This lawyer was sitting in court when all those objections about the GoFundMe were going
being as
on.
part of
He was
that
sitting
small
there, so
bar
he
and this
knows
is the kind of work
everything.
you do, that's something you generally pay attention to, as other lawyers part of that area do as
Well, it's a lot like sitting in here. I mean, it's easier to pay attention than to just sit there bored. So, yeah, you pay attention to it.
Are you familiar with what's been known as the boat case?
I am very familiar. I represent the Beach family, so I filed the boat case.
And you say the Beach family, are you talking about the family at Mallory Beach?
The family of Mallory Beach, that's right.
And is she the young woman who died in the boat
Don't
accident?
lead, just ask.
She did.
And what was the date of that accident?
It was the early morning hours of February 24th, 2019.
At some point, you said you were representing the Beach family. At some point, you were approached by the Beach family?
I was, shortly after the wreck. There was an incident on the causeway. So this boat crash happens, there's a bridge called, you go over Archer's Creek. Archer's Creek is a creek that separates Paris Island.
This is the first
marine
time they're hearing the
installation
details
from,
of the boat
I
case.
guess that's Port Royal. And the boat crash happened at that bridge. There's a road, if you can imagine the causeway, there's an old road that goes down to the base of the bridge. And after the boat crash, the law enforcement had cordoned off, had a rope up or yellow flag, yellow taping up, and so Miss Beach wanted to go down to see where her daughter had died. And she wasn't allowed to.
Objection, relevance, closure.
Objection's overruled.
Please continue.
She wasn't allowed to go down
Breaking up the pacing.
to
Notice the defense's
the
strategy
bridge.
here.
She
was
told
not?
She was not. She was told it was a crime scene, and she couldn't go down there.
Mallory Beach's
Right.
mom was not allowed to
What
go
else
on the
did
crime
she-
scene.
And when she was hiring you, what else did she report?
Almost immediately thereafter,
Hearsay.
It is hearsay.
For the truth of the matter asserted, but effect on the listener and the reasons for the actions he took, which has become relevant in the boat case.
Only argued when requested by the court. Objection's overruled.
almost immediately
The court is snippy.
thereafter,
I'm
car
here for it.
pulled up, driven by Alec's father. His wife was in the front seat. Alec's wife, Maggie, was in the front seat.
This is
They were
important. The
waved
defense is going to
down the
object more.
bridge, and that caused her a great amount of distress.
Mallory
Did she
Beach was missing in the
ultimately
water. Her family was
hire you
kept
to
out
represent
of being able to go down there.
her?
The Murdaughs drove up and were
that
waved
day I got
past the
involved.
crime scene and right down to where they wanted to
At
be.
some point, as you get involved,
That's what
you
this
start to
case is about.
investigate the occurrence?
That's what the boat case is about. That's what the boat case is
did.
about.
I started to investigate.
Power.
But I started to try to put pressure on law enforcement, which is, I'm drawing a distinction there almost immediately, because the concern was that it was going to get covered up by the Beach family, and they didn't want that to happen.
They were worried the boat case would get
Your Honor,
covered up.
I would object to these references to covering up. It's not relevant to the motive purpose for this testimony, and it is prejudicial. on the
That's
court of
speaking.
jury.
I sustain the objection.
Strike the previous response.
Objection is sustained. You may proceed.
Yes, Your Honor.
This is going to
Just
get,
generally, you investigate the case, is that?
I
this
did.
is going to get heated.
And at some point, did you reach out or have any discussions with anyone who was representing the defendant, Alec Murdaugh?
I did. Well, I've talked to a number of the partners, but after I
When you say
began...
partners, you're talking about PMP?
Yeah, yes, I'm sorry.
Exactly, Brittany.
But eventually I came to know that Danny Henderson was appointed as Alec's personal counsel, who was one of the partners. You may remember there was a video from Alec in the front seat of the law enforcement car and the arm that reaches up and squeezes his shoulder while he's crying. That's Danny Henderson.
All right. And did you and Danny Henderson,
Because
did
this
he have
witness has
any
watched all the
documents for you to
testimony,
review?
which is weird as
He
fuck
brought
to me.
me all of the insurance policies for all of the insurance that Alec had in place at the time of the boat crash.
And for what reason did he bring you those documents?
Well, when you do what I do, we can't turn back the hands, we can't undo what's happened. And so, you know, the best that you can hope, and when you get a case like this, this kind of loss,
Objection narrative.
nobody gets what their case is worth.
Nobody
if that means
wins.
anything. I mean, nobody would willingly trade place with these people for money. But that's all that you can do in a civil case is recover money. And so some things are covered by insurance, some things are not. And so many times when we are drafting lawsuits, we want to know what insurance there was so that we try not to destroy the ability for the insurance to apply in the beginning. So that would have been the reason I was looking at the insurance.
His attorney, Danny Henderson, brought the defendant's policies to you to review, is that correct?
It seems like it was a week, 10 days after the boat crash.
All right. And did you review those?
I did.
And what, if anything, did you find in those documents?
It did not appear to me that he had any coverage other than.
First appearance of what, if anything, today?
There was policy with Progressive, a watercraft policy that applied to the boat. It was $500,000, and it was offered by Progressive immediately. When you have a catastrophic loss, it's not unusual that an insurance company will say, here's our money, take it, please.
He's a trial attorney.
Because they have an
So,
obligation to protect
yes.
their insured if they can.
He's ready to
The other
explain this way.
policies that he had didn't provide coverage except for a for-hire hunting operation, which this didn't arise out of. And so,
What company was that with?
Who cares?
Philadelphia Insurance.
All right. And again, that policy was limited to what?
The occurrence, the accident, if you will, had to arise out of a hunting operation, a business operation. And even if there were some way to say that this boat ride this night did that, there were very specific watercraft exclusions that then excluded the coverage. So accidents are covered, but then you have all these
I imagine the jury's
exclusions
very
that take the
interested in this
coverage
because
away.
he's
So there was
pulled
no
them into
coverage.
the story of the
Did,
boat crash
the
that they've
defendant
heard
have
so
an
much
umbrella
about.
policy. First, tell the
They've
jury
heard about
what
the
an
boat
umbrella
crash
policy
for
is very
weeks.
quickly, if you could.
And
An
now they're
umbrella
hearing about
policy
his
would
exposure
be
on the boat
if you
case,
have
the
a
insurance
primary,
exposure on the boat case.
policy, say on your
The lack
car,
of coverage,
The
the
umbrella
under
policy
coverage.
would sort of be a coverage. It could be broader than your car. It could also apply to your house. Generally, that coverage is, the limits are multiples of maybe what your liability limits are, and it could be broader than just your house. It could apply to your house and your car. So I don't remember. I think all of the coverage was with Philadelphia, and I remember reviewing all the policies. I don't remember if it was exactly what they were referred to this time.
Did you ever find out if the defendant had an umbrella policy or the status of that policy?
There was no coverage for this boat crash other than with Progressive on the boat.
Did the defendant have an umbrella policy at one time, to your review?
He had coverage. He had the coverage with Lloyd's of London and Nautilus immediately before, which was the coverage that was in effect when Gloria Satterfield fell at his house. And he had an umbrella policy there.
All right. And what happened to that policy, that coverage?
The policy came up for renewal. Normally they're a year. It comes up for renewal and this claim's still open. And so when it came up for renewal, the insurance company wouldn't renew the policy and they canceled it, which is why he then went and bought this hunting club operation or hunting for hire operation, whatever that policy was, but.
How did he
didn't
not
really
have an
cover
umbrella
anything.
policy? I have
Because he didn't
no
have
idea.
that kind of business.
In your assessment and judgment, would that Philadelphia Hunting Lodge policy provide any coverage for the boating accident?
It did not. I told Danny Henderson in November of 2019 that it did not. Philadelphia filed something called a declaratory judgment action where they go and ask the court to declare their rights, meaning we don't have any coverage. It's clear the policy doesn't apply. Judge, tell, in this case, the plaintiff, because they sued us, the Beach family, and they sued Alex Murdaugh and to for a declaration there was no coverage.
He talks a lot.
I refused to participate. I said I would just be bound by whatever the result was because I knew what the result was going to be.
Paula, don't apologize first. And second, we're
Generally,
revisiting these
at this point
witnesses
in
in
time-
front of the jury.
What was your assessment of
These were
the
only at
defendant,
hearings before, so
how
now
lucrative
this is in front of the
defendant's
jury.
practice was and his general wealth?
Well,
The insurance coverage
So-
relates to his exposure of how much he can lose in the boat case. It goes to all the
I
financial
believe
stuff.
that he was making lots of money. I told you that he had most of the cases, so if that's 50% or 60% of the cases
But he didn't have a policy after Gloria
that are actively
Satterfield
resolving,
because he made the
he's
insurance
actively
claim there.
making money. Money's coming in. Now, whether, I knew that how the law firm worked in terms of they would get their money at the end of the year. That's not uncommon, but it doesn't really change the fact that he's making lots of money. And that didn't really change in the time that I knew him. It certainly hadn't changed in the years immediately preceding the boat crash. So about last 3 to 5 years.
Danny, Mallory Beach worked
And
for
ultimately,
Chris
with your
Wilson's
review of the
wife.
insurance coverages,
So
the
worked
only one
for
that you thought
Alex's
was
best
applicably
friend's
was
wife,
applicable
Chris
was
Wilson.
which one?
The progressive boat policy,
And how much was that?
$500,000.
And from your assessment of the case, was that going to be enough?
No, it wasn't. There were 6 people on the boat, including Alex's son, Paul. So there was one girl whose hand was pretty severely injured. She had about $130,000 in medical bills, a couple of surgeries. You had one boy who was thrown
Oh,
into
you're
the
right. It was
console
Ronnie
and
Crosby's
had a
wife.
broken
You're
jaw.
right. I'm sorry. I
Looks
meant
like it
Crosby's.
is 41403.
You're right. Crosby's wife. My apologies.
Objections overruled.
You're right. Sorry,
And-
Chad. I'm very
and
tired.
his
Thank
medical
you.
bills exceeded $100,000. So, you got a death, you've got 2 people with
Thank you, Chad.
substantial medical bills, and there was just no way there was enough coverage at $500.
$500K is not enough to cover
As a
everybody who's
result of that
injured.
assessment and your assessment of the defendant's lucrative practice and wealth, what, if any, goals did you develop for this particular litigation?
I don't know if it's as easy to answer that, but as
You have to answer the
as I
question.
began to realize there was no coverage, it was clear that and oftentimes when you have someone who is very affluent, who has a lot of money, it's not uncommon for those people to pay in addition to what they have in insurance. And so Alec was going to have to pay out of his own pocket to settle the cases.
Did you ultimately file suit in this matter?
I filed suit, I think about a month after the boat crash. I filed suit before the criminal charges were brought.
Criminal charges against who?
Paul, I'm sorry.
And so in March of 2019, you filed suit?
I believe so.
And did you sue the defendant?
I did.
Without getting into the weeds too much,
Thank God.
what's the basis of potential liability for the defendant?
So, in the very beginning, if there was any chance at coverage, the allegations were that he knew that his son Buster, his older son Buster, who was 21 years old, had obtained a duplicate license, and that Paul was using that license to buy alcohol. And so it's sort of Alec's lawyers from time to time have characterized it as negligent parenting, but it's
That's not really it.
in the law you have this idea that there's this thing called negligent entrustment.
Yep.
You know that somebody drinks, you know that he has a propensity to drink in excess, get drunk, You give him your vehicle, you've created a hazardous situation. And so that's the liability against Ellick. And so what I did in the very
they should leave the
beginning,
Zoom
in
on
first
Buster this whole
lawsuit,
testimony.
was I drafted it to
Just
try
zoom in on
to
Buster.
see if there could be coverage, even though I didn't think it was going to be successful.
You testified that you'd made the
Why are
assessment
they all
that
laughing?
the defendant was going to have to personally pay in this matter, correct?
I want them to keep the cameras
He
right there
was.
on John, Marvin, and Buster.
Did you ultimately communicate that to
Nope,
his
go back.
attorneys and to the defense in this case?
Multiple times and very clearly.
We don't care about Alex's sister.
And in this
Go
case, I
back
mean
to
the Buck
Buster.
case.
Yes.
Just, we want to see Buster. We don't care about Creighton's face anymore. We want to see Buster. Because Buster is not
Is there
thrilled.
such a concept as
Buster
a
has settled this case
friendly
because Buster
defendant
was
or a
also
venue
sued.
defendant or a placeholder defendant in civil litigation?
There is.
Can you just very quickly explain that to the jury?
It started, you first see the references back in, I think it was the 40s and 50s. And it was a way that if you're from out of state and you get sued in South Carolina, you have a right, rather than be in state court like we are now, you could have it, that case against you taken to federal court. And so oftentimes what people would do to keep the out-of-state person from taking it to federal court and rather keep it in the county where they knew everybody is you would also sue someone in state. And so it was a venue defendant. Now, and that kept the federal court from having what's called diversity. But in civil cases in state court, sometimes you do that.
I didn't
If
think
there are
we'd
two
get to
people driving
diversity
a car,
jurisdiction in this trial, but there we are.
driving two cars, two people
We've just come
involved in
full
the
circle
wreck,
and back to
you know,
diversity
the passenger
jurisdiction,
didn't
because it
cause the
always comes
wreck,
back.
So you could sue both and let the jury
Did
sort out
diversity
who it
jurisdiction
was,
exist in this
even
case
though
with
you
Kensington?
believe that probably 99% of the liabilities on one person, or maybe all of it's on one person. Juries
He's going to
do
lecture this jury on
crazy
diversity
things sometimes.
jurisdiction in a minute.
Had you made it clear to the defense during this time that you were not considering the defendant just a friendly defendant or
Kim,
a
this is
placeholder
critical
defendant
information.
or a venue defendant?
I
From the
found
beginning
store brand
and very
Old Dress
clearly.
chips. That's amazing. I'm going to start
And
looking.
that meant you were seeking a personal recovery against him.
He was always going to have to pay and pay a lot of money.
Does your area of the law, do y'all have some sort of annual conference every year that many people involved in it attend?
We do.
Buster was kicked out of law
Michael Gunn
school for
mentioned it.
cheating.
I think he called it SCAD or
I
I don't know.
think it
So I
was,
called it the Trial Lawyers Conference. It was at the Westin at Hilton Head
plagiarism.
every year.
And what time of year what month does that take place?
It's usually the first weekend of August, so that if that's first, second, third,
should be
or
done in
fourth,
about
fifth, and
15
sixth,
minutes.
but it's usually that first week of August.
In August of 2019, did you attend that conference?
I did.
And did you see the defendant there?
I did.
And did you have any conversation with him?
this conversation's juicy.
Normally, different law firms have dinners, and
It's all parties.
groups of lawyers, because it's marketing too, right? I mean, you go and.
It's parties.
And you have dinners and you take other lawyers out who may send you cases or
It's
get you
drinking and
involved in
parties.
cases. And so,
It's
after
networking.
dinner, everybody sort of comes back to the hotel, and there at the Westin, there's a gathering
Drinking.
area. And I think it was a fundraiser, either for Mr. Harpootlian or for Lindsey Graham. But there were the whole room of
There was
lawyers.
a political fundraiser for
And,
either Dick
he
Harpootlian or
saw
Lindsey
me.
Graham.
And this
What
is
is
the
happening?
first sort of gathering. There's a little tension, I think, generally in the room about it. And then he beelines across the room and gets about this close.
How
What does
close?
the defendant say
I
to
can
you?
do that too.
Hey, Bo, what's this I've been hearing about what you've been saying? I thought we were friends.
Hey, Bo, what's
did you
this I've been
respond to that?
I
hearing
did. I told
about
him
what
that
you've been
we were
saying?
friends, that if he didn't think that I was going to do everything I needed to do to help my clients, he was wrong and he needed to settle the case.
What'd you actually
Was that
say?
conversation about your intent to seek a personal recovery?
That's when he said, "What's this about what I've been hearing? I thought we were friends." That's what he was talking about. He didn't like the fact that I was saying he was going to have to
Speculation.
come out of his pocket and pay.
And what did you say?
Moving on to the following month.
No, he
there
said
a
he was going to
mediation in
burn
the
his
case?
house down. You need to bring that out
The
on
next
direct.
year. So that was
2020.
August of 19. We don't have the mediation until September.
He needs to bring that out on
20.
direct.
At this point in time, the case has been filed, and without getting into detail, you're generally engaging in the discovery process, is that correct?
We are, which is you go and you put witnesses under oath and you take their depositions and you
Oh, yeah,
examine
attorneys
them
throw
and you
good
collect
parties.
documents and those sorts of things. But we were taking depositions primarily of law enforcement, the people at the emergency room, that sort of thing.
What happened in March of 2020 that affected everybody?
The vid.
Well, COVID began to shut the courts down. We continued to take some depositions, but ultimately, I think it was probably April, May, then we were sort of confined to our offices by then. So in March, we're still taking depositions of law enforcement, and it sort of slows down.
You continue to work on the boat case?
We did.
Continue to gather evidence and documentation?
I did. One of, there was a number of things that we knew existed that had not been collected by law enforcement and didn't appear to exist as far as law enforcement were concerned. And so, for instance, I subpoenaed from the Department of Defense, I believe, and ultimately got all of the federal government's documents of affidavits and things of witnesses that were out there from Parris Island.
And without getting into all the details of the evidence, were you gathering evidence that you felt make your claim against the defendant strong?
It did.
And did you share some of these, at least some of these findings with the defense?
Well, they're sitting in the room. I mean, they might not know it until I bring it out. The first lawyer asks questions, and then the person may or may not be completely truthful, and then you bring out the document. And so they're seeing it happen. And that's mainly with law enforcement. There were a number of law enforcement depositions where that happened.
I'll answer that.
As you're moving through the months of COVID and their shutdown and everything like that, is one of the things that you do is use a mock jury to sort of assess your case.
Objection, Your Honor. 401, 403.
Objection's overruled.
I did in this case.
All right. And some of this evidence that you felt was strong, did you sort of present that to this mock jury? It is just as a tool to help you assess how strong your case is and how likely it is of a recovery.
Yes, and I was specifically interested in Beaufort County, and I can explain that if you want.
Just very briefly, let's try not to get into the weeds too much, but just, yeah, if you can.
So the
Try not to get
alcohol
the weeds
was-
too much.
was
We're
sold,
there. We live in the
by
weeds now,
a convenience
Creighton.
store, Parker's Convenience Store.
We've made
And
houses
the
out of
Parker's
weeds.
lawyer at times would seem to act like Paul wasn't the driver, and at other times,
The judge is not happy.
The objection's overruled.
at other times, he would go after law enforcement specifically about that particular officer's connection with Alex Murdaugh, or the Murdaughs in general. And so you really can't have it both ways, right? I mean, if Paul's not the driver, you don't really worry about the alcohol that was sold, then the connection with law enforcement sort of becomes irrelevant. So and it was clear what they were doing was they were trying to try a case that look at all the bad things, don't let him get away with this because of verdict against Parker's. And so I was interested in if we went to Beaufort, because I'm being told by Alec's lawyer that a Hampton jury won't return a verdict against him.
A Hampton
And
jury
so
won't return a verdict against
what
him.
I'm trying to determine is if we go to Beaufort, is the evidence that I have uncovered so overwhelming that a jury ignores the clear breaches by Parker's company?
And ultimately, again, without getting into the weeds,
We're now
were
litigating the
the
boat
results
case.
of that exercise with the mock jury, did that give you further confidence in the strength of a large recovery against the defendant? Just answer
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
We're now like well into
And
talking about the boat
ultimately, did
case.
you communicate that to the defendant's defense team?
I did. I also, to Ronnie Crosby,
I think Alec felt confident that a Hampton jury
who said that
wouldn't
he would
return
talk
a
to Alec.
verdict against him.
I mean, and then they wanted copies
maybe
of
still
some
won't.
of the statements by the people that wanted to take everything he had.
What time period are we talking about right
This was May of '20.
Did you have anything else going on in your life as this time period
The
was going on as
second,
Well, I was getting divorced.
well? Right. That's significant.
Yeah.
so Tinsley was getting divorced. He was also
But-
battling
yeah,
cancer.
so,
All right.
but, yeah, I think you're
No question
later in
pending.
the summer, but.
No question pending.
As we move from May of
I did.
2020 into the
I did, because it's right. He knew
fall
that
of
that's true.
2020, are those conversations continuing with the defense about the strength of your case and your desire to have a personal recovery against the defendant?
Sure, there was a lot of pushback about the
Chad, I
shock
see
that
you.
I would
I believe
hold
he's
Alec
remarried, but
personally
I don't know.
responsible, make him pay.
I can't keep track of the
And,
marital status of all
and
the
then in
witnesses, y'all.
August of '20, I figured out that I had cancer, and but we continued to work, and then probably by November.
Oh, I saw the smirk on Alec's face. I
knew
did.
how bad it was, and I knew that I was going to be gone, and so I tried to make arrangements to do things because I'm still having to decide. The case is getting some age on it. We filed it pretty soon. A case that gets about
over
a
a
year
year.
old ought to go on the trial roster. We have mandatory mediation. We're going to mediate it in September, and then immediately after that, it would be eligible for trial. We didn't settle the case, and in November, I sent some
Court's probably going to be done pretty quickly here.
request to admit, which is, in the law, in civil cases, there's all this evidence. It's like in here, you've seen this.
Yes.
You have to bring somebody in here that says, I opened the car door, and then you bring the next guy in and says, well, I took the mats out. And
I'll work on
if
keeping a
that's
list
not
of everybody's
disputed,
marital
and we can
status
send
better.
something, it's a written question, say, admit that it was daylight when
I'll
this
try.
happened. Okay,
Y'all,
we'll
I'll try.
admit that. So we don't have to call somebody in. And so it's admit certain facts to be true, and then those things are taken as true, and we don't have to present them. So I had made up my mind that I was going to send the case to Beaufort after the focus groups, and I was going to try the case in Beaufort. So I sent requests to admit in November of 19 before I was about to leave to go to Florida for my cancer treatment.
In November of 19?
I'm sorry, November of 20. I think
I
it was
do.
November
One
of
job.
19.
All right, before we
It's to
get
remember
there,
who is single for y'all. Go buy an annuity, folks.
you'd had some discussions with the defense about the strength of your case.
I just
as
want
you
to talk
talked
about the tea,
correct?
and I'm very
Oh, yeah.
excited to
And
get
strength
to
of
the
your
end of the
case
day
against
so
the
we can talk about
defendant,
that.
is correct?
Yeah, and one of
Just
the
real
other.
quick, let me ask a question if you could.
Sure.
I know y'all, I'm trying.
Had
trying.
you had any discussions about a number that you were seeking from the defendant, roughly?
Ultimately, I have that conversation. They pushed me for a number. By November, I've given them a number, yes.
All right. And roughly what that number was?
That number, he was going to have to pay $10 million out of his pocket.
They wanted him to. Not he was going to
And
have to. They wanted him to.
Did the defense
pay
have
$10
any
million.
response to you eventually?
That he could cobble together $1 million.
Might could.
Did
But
they
he was
have any
broke.
other response?
He was broke.
He was broke. He can only get $1 million.
Maybe could get $1 million.
Remember, he was trying to hide money from the boat case.
Based
might
on your
could get $1
knowledge
million.
of the defendant and his practice as you've testified, did you accept that response that he was, quote, broke, unquote?
No, I didn't believe it at all.
Time for lunch. No, time for court to be done. That was that.
Did
thing.
you offer him any other sort of settlement, any sort of type of plan or anything like that?
If you're broke, I'm happy to work out a payment plan.
Tinsley does
You can
like
make
to be on
payments.
stage.
You can convey Moselle. I knew he had Moselle. He got Moselle right after a big settlement in 2012. So that's 1,700 acres. Conveyed Moselle, conveyed the beach house. He still had the house in Hampton. And we'll work out a payment plan on the rest.
Did they reject that?
He did.
Having been told that the defendant is broke despite what you believe, did you have a response to them?
I did. In October, almost immediately after the mediation, I served some discovery. Again, it's a written question, and there are two different types. There's interrogatories where you ask a question, tell me where you bank. And then there could be requests for production, give me your bank records. Now, I didn't say that, but I did. I sent discovery to...
And just real quick, we'll talk about discovery in a second, but generally, what is that response? He says, I'm broke. What are you saying in response?
There's no way. I mean, like I said, he has a spigot of money that's running. He's settling cases. He's got big cases. He's got lots of cases. He's got generational wealth.
He
There's
doesn't
no
believe
way
him.
He's got 1,800 acres in Moselle.
I don't
He's
believe
not
that you're broke.
by anybody's standards.
Did you ask the
I don't-
defense to...
he's like, I'm
okay,
not buying
show me
what
the
you're
books,
selling
prove to me that you're broke?
I did.
And what was the response?
Prove it.
No.
So that led you to some discovery?
It led me to send discovery to get that information.
And specifically, what information
They're
as it
gonna have to ride
relates
this
to
witness out
the
till the end of the
defendant's
day.
books and the defendant's accounts are you talking about?
Well, it was broad, so it was broader than this, but what I was looking for was the institutions, the accounts where he did his banking, because if he was in fact broke, if his bank account says zero or $5,000 or $7,000.
Very, very much a litigator suit.
It was because he was hiding it, in my opinion, at the time. So that's what I was looking for.
And so you sent those discovery requests?
I did.
And did the defendant provide that information, or did they decline to provide that information?
They objected almost immediately.
And so did you then file some subsequent legal papers because they refused to provide the information about the defendant's accounts?
I did. I filed what's called a motion to compel, where I asked the judge
We're here with Tinsley
to
testifying.
compel or make him
Cross-examination
give
will
me
be
the
interesting
information.
tomorrow. So Tinsley will be cross-examined about
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's
about
Exhibit 402. And just generally, just see if you recognize this document.
GoFundMe. We'll talk about that when the court breaks for the day. And then I'll answer a few questions, and then we'll be done for the day. It's just, he just wants to
I
chat.
do. It's the motion to compel that I filed with three exhibits, which are his lawyer's responses, the objections to the questions.
And what's the date on that document?
The
Motion
date-
to compel.
The motion to compel was filed October the 16th, 2020.
Your Honor, this time I would offer State's Exhibit 402 in evidence, I believe, subject only to a previous objection.
So I know a lot of you are asking, Mark Tinsley testified at the 404 that if Alec's family had been subject to like a vigilante, they would have dropped the boat case entirely. They would have settled for whatever the last offer was, 500,000, a million, whatever. They would have just settled it and it would have gone away.
State's 402, the one you just described, is
So-
that right?
That's right.
That'll be interesting to see.
And that's the date on it right there?
Correct.
Oh, Tinsley probably won't start cross today. I imagine the court's going to break pretty soon. I mean, the court hasn't been going this late most days. I think the court's really annoyed this is taking so long. But the court should be done, or the court should have been done like 15 minutes ago. So I think if,
And I've turned over what's Exhibit B to this
I think
document.
we're almost done.
And is this some of that discovery
Talk
asking
about-
for the
Mr.
for the
Tinsley,
defendant
not a
to
member of the
identify his
Brotherhood. No, he is
specific bank
not.
accounts that you were just describing?
He is clearly not a
That's
member of the
right.
Brotherhood.
And can you just
Tinsley is not
read
part of this
number
good old
one right
boys
there?
club.
That's a question that you're asking the defendant to provide to you, correct?
Yeah, what you see there is the bold, the answer is, so this is, Alec's lawyer has retyped the questions that I
Remember,
sent.
y'all,
So that's the question that I wrote.
He went to
Number
Clemson
one,
first.
list all checking and/or savings accounts, including credit union accounts, certificates of deposit, 401k accounts, SEP accounts, IRAs maintained by you
This is what he's
individually
asking
and/or
for.
jointly with any others, and any other accounts over which you had signature authority for maybe it's in any capacity, regardless of whether or not the account or accounts have been closed from February 2019 to present. And then the answer is what his lawyer said, which is generally an objection that's overbroad, it's unduly burdensome, it's not relevant, doesn't have anything to do with it. So
they had objected, and you filed a motion to compel. And again, without too much detail, is a motion to compel to ask the judge in the civil case to force them to provide you this information.
that's right.
Oh, Chat,
And
you're
if-
right. He should be wearing an orange
Motion, and
tie.
we'll talk more about this in a minute, but if a motion to compel is successful and you had gotten
I would have thought it
the
was
defendant
regarding
to
Tennessee.
produce the identity of all accounts he had, what would have been
I
your
can't keep
next
track
step
of all
if
the
you continued
orange
to follow that
colleges.
thread?
There's a lot of them.
So I knew some information. I would have verified
This just got louder.
that he was telling me the
Sorry.
truth, right? So some things I'm verifying, but I would have ultimately sent subpoenas to the banks. And then I would have begun to subpoena the accounts. I mean, I know he's got a personal account. I know that the
Oh,
law
I'm an
firm's got
outsider. I
accounts,
can't
but
remember if it's
he's got these
Clemson or
other
Clemson or
entities, these
Clemson
partnerships
or,
and
so
things.
I will
didn't
try
know
my
if he had
best to
accounts
not
there.
offend the
So that would have been
Clemsonites.
what would have happened next.
At this point in time,
But if you
were
had worn orange, I would have
aware
been like, go you
of any
too.
institutions that you believe the defendant had bank accounts at?
I knew about Palmetto State Bank, and I believe that I knew about Bank of America.
At this point in time, though, did you have any idea about all the stuff over there with the fake forge account and all this other stuff that the jury's heard about?
Not a clue.
He did
But
say
had
he's a
you
proud
been
orange backpack
successful,
wearer.
you
He
would have
did say
sought to
that.
identify all accounts in his name and then reviewed those accounts.
And if you
Yeah, the
had
subpoena
identified all the
to Bank
accounts,
of
it would have been a
America
fucking
wouldn't have said,
disaster.
give me the information for account 102 or whatever the number was. It would have been for all accounts that have his name on it, period, in any capacity. So it would have been very broad.
And to be fair, they could continue to object to subpoenas and that sort of thing, but this was, if you had to follow this thread, that was the tack that you were taking by filing this document. Is that correct?
That's exactly what it was, and I was
This is the
doing
problem
it
with
like-
UT.
You heard Chris Wilson talk about in that Mack truck case that the
Between Go Vols and
defendant
Hook 'em
didn't
Horns, it
want
gets very
this to
confusing.
happen. Well, this is normal in a civil case. There's lots of times that defendants don't want certain things to happen, and so if they don't want it, that's what I want. And so I'm putting pressure where I can put pressure, and this is a place that I can put pressure.
He
At
is the
time, I
pressure
think it's
cooker.
because he's making so much money, he doesn't really want us to
Let's
know how
pause
much
today.
money he's
Tinsley's
making.
the pressure cooker. Tinsley is the pressure cooker. And here's the thing. Why do we know Alec was feeling under pressure from the boat case? Because he brought it up. He brought it up at every single turn. I know Tennessee is a very specific orange. It is a very, very specific orange. All of my targets have things in that orange. It's very bright. It is a very, very specific bright.
That
orange.
motion's filed in October of 2020. Is there any hearing on that scheduled right away, or does that take sometimes a while for that kind of thing to happen?
It took a while. COVID wasn't over, but the courts weren't really running. There were some courts, when the Chief Justice began to open the court system back up, they had to have some kind of COVID plan in place. Hampton wasn't one of them. This case had been specially assigned to a judge from Lancaster, and so there weren't any real opportunities to get the motion heard at that time.
You had initially described how you were,
Your Honor,
initially,
objection.
what county did you file this
It's like
lawsuit in?
5:30. We're
I
tired,
first filed
Your
the
Honor.
lawsuit in its first
I
draft
object.
in Beaufort County.
Okay. And as we're moving to this time period, COVID slowed things around, you filed your motion to compel. Are you considering moving that to a different county?
Your Honor.
By November, I've pretty well made up my mind
We're
that I'm
so
going to move it
tired.
back to Beaufort County. And it's not just that I'm moving it back, it's that Parker's also had a motion, so I could consent to its motion to move the case back.
And so you're considering putting it in Beaufort at this point, is that right?
That's right.
And was that in part because
The jury is going to be like, okay, I don't care if it's in
defense
Beaufort or
the defendant
Hampton.
over
They
there
got the
believed
good
that
testimony
could get a
about
verdict against
that.
him in Hampton County?
He was insistent.
As we move into early 2021, again, I don't want to get in for purposes of this trial.
He was
for the
insistent.
specific discussion as it relates to
that
other
no
defendants.
one
but
would
have you
come back
started to
against him in
reassess
Hampton. Stop there for the
decision to
day.
maybe take it to Beaufort County?
Yes, while I was in Florida, beginning in January, Mr. Parker, who owned Parker's Convenience Store, began to do a number of things that I thought would weigh against me going to Beaufort County.
And so did you communicate perhaps moving it or keeping it in Hampton County or moving it to Hampton County?
Not until I got back from my treatment in mid-April.
All right. Stand by for me real quick.
No, let's take a break for the day. Let's take a break for the day. I think we're done. Stand by means it's time to be done. But they did end early yesterday. So that's where we're at. I'm going to answer some questions as we can. Mark Tinsley is in love with Mark Tinsley. Mark Tinsley does like to chat. What color purple do you use in your hair? A couple different ones, and I would have to ask my hairdresser. I'm not sure which brand he uses, and then I use some of the like overtone and stuff to extend the life of the color, but I would have to ask. I just trust Garland to do things, and he does things. Could Mark Tinsley donating be used in an appeal?
Let me ask you this.
We'll get there
You
in a
said
minute.
you started considering moving it back to Hampton County because of some things that was happening with another defendant, that being the convenience store in Beaufort County, correct?
You said Hampton, I think you meant Beaufort.
Sorry.
Does the lawyer get
Let me
more money
rephrase
on the
that.
higher settlement?
You're in
Yes.
Beaufort at this point, correct?
No, I'm in Hampton. I filed it initially
They
against
get, okay, I don't care which county you're in.
Luther's, which was a
They
bar
get
after, so
33% roughly of whatever the settlement. So 33% of 10 million or 33% of $1 million. It's a big difference for them.
And it's owned by
So yes, financial
family
incentive.
trust, Murdaugh Family Trust. Maybe there are two properties and there's two trusts. So I sued Alec's father, I sued the trust, because could have been that alcohol was provided there. It turned out it wasn't. But the kids drank and launched the boat from there. And then they went to an oyster roast. I sued the people who had
He sued
the oyster
everybody.
roast. From there, they went to a bar called Luther's where Paul had 2 shots. And so I sued Luther's and I sued Alec. And I'm not 100% certain in that first lawsuit whether I sued Buster or not. But I ultimately did sue Buster.
He did, and
You're in-
Buster has
You were
since
describing you
settled.
were in April 2021. Had you at that point had some thought process that you communicated to the defense about having the case in Hampton?
Yes, I did.
And was it because of some of those things with that other defendant that you had mentioned?
Yeah, the court is running late tonight.
Without
was.
getting into
Today
it
is not the
was.
day, and I am not the one.
And the motions were coming up. I mean, it was, I've been gone for
Chris, it's okay, thank
4
you.
months or whatever it is, 4.5 months. And so the motions are set to be heard. And there are a number of motions. Parker's, I said, had filed this motion to transfer the case to Beaufort before I
Parker's
left.
is the convenience store.
As you're thinking about, as we're in April of
I
2021.
think that's the
and
first
you're
time the
thinking
jury's
about
heard that Buster also got sued. I think that's new
putting
for
it in
them.
Hampton, you were still concerned,
I
though,
wonder Buster
about
doesn't like him.
the
Facts.
case against the defendant in Hampton County, his home county, correct?
Buster gave his younger brother his license
Not
to buy alcohol with.
I think you're still getting Beaufort and Hampton mixed up, but, so not exactly. I was,
All right, well, you explain it to
Okay,
me.
I'll explain. There was,
He's like, I'll explain it. Great.
there were a number of reasons that I wanted the case in Beaufort. I had substantial evidence. One of the things that we didn't talk about was when you have a 17, 18, 19-year-old girl, which I have, she constantly has her phone and she's constantly taking videos. And so one of the things that I discovered is that Paul's girlfriend had tons of videos. Videos of alcohol, family trips, videos of Paul drinking in front of his parents, videos of him grossly intoxicated. And so that evidence I shared with Alec's lawyers as well leading up to it. I didn't share it. They didn't serve the same discovery on me because they didn't want the other defendant, Greg Parker's, to have it at that time because they were so entrenched in that there was some sort of venue-friendly lawsuit going on between Alec and myself, but there wasn't.
As you're considering all these issues, did you ever convey to the defense any issue about suing any other defendants in Beaufort County if you felt like your case was not getting a fair shake in Hampton County?
So once I made the decision,
We're in the weeds. Objection, we're in the weeds.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to stop for the day.
We made
We're
it!
going to resume at 9:30 tomorrow morning. Please not discuss the case.
We're not gonna make it. No, we're not gonna make it. Oh, we've made it. I thought today was never going to end, and I have been waiting. I have been anxiously waiting. I have been wiggly waiting. I have been waiting to talk about the GoFundMe. I want to talk about the GoFundMe. The judge is like, ugh, we're done. But we are very well in the weeds of which county he wanted a trial in. It doesn't fucking matter. The testimony they needed is he didn't think they would ever come back with a verdict against him in Hampton. And eventually the case got moved to Beaufort, if that's what happened. That's all they need. The how and the why and the this is not needed. Ooh, I want to hear what the judge has to say.
The nature of the objection.
Thank you, Blues.
Your Honor, as I understand this, the relevance of this under the state's theory is
He meant the legal
financial
grounds.
pressure due to he said $10 million that
He means the legal grounds?
the defendant to pay. These details about interactions with other defendants, the relevance is just not apparent. And then there's giving.
Your Honor, through my questions, I've been trying to minimize getting into the weeds on that. I believe the response that the witness, I'm happy to proffer an answer to that particular question, is communicating to the defense that he, intended to sue Maggie and Paul in Beaufort County if he detected anything that he thought in Hampton County that was untoward. And I think that that's specifically relevant to the specific pressures that were rising on this defendant in April of 2021.
Well, I think you could have asked him that question, but I agree with
didn't.
the defense. You said you're not trying to get in the weeds, but you're far into the weeds, into the other case, and I sustain the objection.
Thank you,
And
Judge
we will
Newman.
resume at 9:30. Mr. Harpootlian.
Thank you, Your Honor. We're far in the fucking weeds.
The defense will have the opportunity to call witnesses. I'm not sure when that's going to be. Anyway.
We live in the weeds
A number
now.
of our witnesses, when I say a number, at least 4, perhaps 5, are from out of state. They're experts, so it's prohibitively expensive for
Scheduling.
us to just fly them in and have them sit somewhere for a week or two.
We need to
I wonder
schedule.
if we could inquire of the state, is there some end to their case that they predict will happen?
Thanks, Dick.
Within, and because, Your Honor, if they tell us they're going to end on, I mean, it's sort of the reverse, they tell us they're going to end on
This is fair.
10 days from today, and they end 8 days from today, or we won't have witnesses to put up. So we delay the court. So, and it's not.
This is fair.
I've talked to the Attorney General several times, and he has been unable to predict to me when that might happen. I thought perhaps, and I'm not asking he do that right now, but perhaps he could, Your Honor, would ask him, he could consult with
It's
his
fair to ask
team
for a
and
schedule
think
at this
about,
point.
when that might happen. And again, I'm only asking so that
They
we
generally
don't
don't do video
"We have a
testimony in
witness here.
criminal
They're in
cases because of the
Chicago or
constitutional rights
Connecticut
of
or
confrontation.
whatever. They have to book flights, and they have to.
Dick, we get the logistics.
I'm not whining. I'm just saying to some specific.
Reasonable request. I
It's
certainly
reasonable.
understand.
We get the logistics, Dick. Stop talking now.
I believe, and I think the defense counsel will have to concede, I've been very accommodating at what our next day's schedule is and trying to provide that. I've tried my best to communicate with the defense, and I think
He
he would
doesn't
have to
know.
concede.
Yeah, but he's not worried about that part. He wants to know, when are you going
He
to be
doesn't.
through?
He doesn't know.
And I told, he says I didn't tell him, and I told him that, right
Facts.
now I'm thinking at the latest midweek next week is what I was thinking. I told him that earlier today, And again, Your Honor understands these are fluid. Objection can happen, cross-examination happens, and camera proceedings can happen, but that is what I told him.
Does that give you a sufficient idea, you know?
Give you an idea, but if, as this process goes on, they decide they need to, I mean, again, I said, I.
Judge Newman's over
gilding
it.
The lily and piling on. It's apparently instinctive. I'm not criticizing it. It's his case.
Oh, you are criticizing it, Dick. You are.
But.
He's piling on is what you said. You're criticizing it.
And he has.
That's a criticism.
Every day when I've asked him, who you calling tomorrow? Been 100% cooperative.
Who are you calling tomorrow?
For him. But as we proceed through tomorrow, and he thinks he's going to be done midweek, Wednesday of next week.
That's my best assessment right now, yes, sir.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to try to structure a plan where we have available witnesses Wednesday,
Local.
Thursday, that
Have
we don't
local
have to fly
witnesses.
in. But it may be the following week before we can get those folks here, if that makes some sense. I mean,
I understand. Well, we'll need to address it as we go, and I think maybe reassess things. And give you some lead time.
I'm in no way criticizing Mr. Waters. I want to say that. I understand it's a fluid situation. I've been where he is. I spent 12 years as a prosecutor. I know how difficult it is.
Oh my
to
God.
project these things.
I spent 12
Having
years as
said
a
that,
prosecutor.
We've been here a little bit longer than I thought we were going to be. We projected a 3-week trial. We're now 3 weeks, or tomorrow will be 3
Yeah,
weeks.
it will be.
And our case is going to take, we think, at least a week. So
We live here now.
if you've rented or set aside hotel rooms for a 3 or 4 week trial, it's probably best to make provisions. And we're going to try to pare that back. We think the jury
Dick, did you miss
may not
talking?
remember what they
Do you
heard
miss the sound of your
3 weeks
voice?
ago, the further we go on.
Stop wandering.
Okay, we'll,
The court
just
reporter has his
revisit the
backpack
issue
on ready to go.
perhaps
Look at
on
him.
a daily
He's ready to
basis and
run.
See how we're going.
Thank you.
Look at him.
Judge.
He's like, let me go. Oh, that's maybe not the court reporter. That might be one of the judicial assistants with the backpack on, ready to go, like ready to leave. All right, court's done for the day. We've got another 2 weeks at least. That's what I heard. All right, let's try to do a summary. And then we've got another 2 weeks. We've got another 2 weeks, y'all. At least another 2 weeks. So at the scheduling conference at the end of the day today, where it's clear that Dick Harpootlian misses speaking, just full stop, we have learned that there's going to be at least a week of the defense case. The prosecution won't be done till next Wednesday. So we have roughly 2 weeks of this trial left. Hopefully we'll find a point somewhere in there. The judge definitely sassed back at the prosecutor. You say you don't want to get into the weeds, but we are well and deep into the weeds on this case. And the judge is absolutely correct. He could have limited the type of 404 and 403 evidence that came in. He didn't put bumpers around it. The defense could absolutely have objected more, and they're not. And the judge is sustaining their objections when they object. Whew. So we are well and thoroughly in the weeds. But what happened today? What happened today that was so interesting were the questions regarding the GoFundMe. So it seems that the witness who testified, Shelley Smith's daughter, set up a GoFundMe for her testimony, or I think there were a lot of people who wanted to reach out and support Shelley Smith after her testimony and her bravery. I do think there were a lot of people that wanted to do that and had warm feelings towards her after she testified. The problem is that it appears that Mark Tinsley donated $1,000 to that and made a comment about for your honest testimony or something like that. The defense brought that to the court's attention after break in the afternoon today and said, look, we've got a witness still under subpoena and a witness about to testify who seems like they are paying a witness for their testimony. I think there is an appearance of impropriety. I think there is not actual impropriety, but it will come up on cross. We'll see what the jury thinks about it. Mark Tinsley is close to this case. The defense is arguing that he has a financial stake in this case because he's representing the Beach family. So it's going to come up in cross-examination. We'll see if the jury cares or not. I don't know if it'll matter to them, but they're going to absolutely talk about the GoFundMe. I don't think that they did anything wrong. The GoFundMe probably should have waited, but I understand striking while the iron is hot. And again, as they say, no good deed goes unpunished. I think the internet wanted to all collectively give Shelley Smith a big hug, and a GoFundMe is one way to do that. But having a witness who's about to testify, who clearly has an axe to grind and can come off as eager to prosecute this defendant, it is a very bad look. The jury will get to decide how much weight to give it. The jury will get to decide if it's just too much, if it's improper, if it's really yucky for them. They'll get to decide. He should have waited till after the trial. He should have waited. But we'll see what the jury thinks about it. I'm not really bothered by the GoFundMe at all. It could have waited till after the trial. I'm more bothered by Tinsley donating under his own name. So he donated $1,000. Here's the thing. I've seen a lot of comments like, oh, do we know it's him? What the defense attorney said is that they conferred with the attorney general, and the attorney general confirmed with Mark Tinsley that he did in fact donate. So we know for a fact he did, and he did it under his name. So could somebody else have put his name in there? Absolutely, always a possibility. You can donate under whatever names. However, it was confirmed with the AG that he did that. And then the court said, look, what is the legal grounds for this? And they're like, well, this is new grounds. If Alec Murdaugh is convicted, this will 100% come up on appeal. But it's also proper grounds for cross-examination. That's what the court said. Cross-examine it. Just cross-examine it. It might feel yucky. It might not feel yucky. Who cares? Just cross-examine it. That's what your job is. There's nothing illegal about it. It's that appearance of impropriety. And for me, I'm not a lawyer that likes to run around in the gray zone, but I was a prosecutor. We don't want prosecutors that run around in the gray zone. You want prosecutors that play by the fucking rules. So it makes me personally uncomfortable. But Mark Tinsley's a plaintiff's lawyer who's ready to burn Alec Murdaugh's house down. And I think he's just like, double barrel and middle fingers towards Alec Murdaugh at this point, and getting those barreled back at him apparently in court by Buster. It's just wild. But great advertisement for the GoFundMe. So there you go. There you go. Tinsley shared on social media and still has Shelley's GoFundMe on his page. Well, there you go. Mark Tinsley, I think he's kind of the honey badger in this case. I don't think he gives a fuck. I don't think he thinks it's improper. And I think he's coming in with both guns blazing. But this witness, when we saw him in the 404s, it's clear that he has an axe to grind, and it's going to come across that he has an axe to grind either way. So the jury's either going to be put off by it, or the jury's going to be like, yeah, fuck him. We're with you. One way or the other. And it could go either way. But Tinsley clearly has an axe to grind in this. And I get it. This man was trying to hide money from the Beach family. He was trying to pin, or at least deflect, Paul's responsibility in the boat case on another kid. Like, I understand all of the go fuck yourself energy. I totally get it. My concern is when the go fuck yourself energy about the boat case overrides the evidence in the murder case. That is where my concerns lie. And I think that's a fair concern to have. But we'll see at the end of the prosecution's case what evidence we have that stacks up. But if he is convicted, we will absolutely see an appeal, and this will be one of the grounds. So that's what it is. What we need to do now is a few FAQ around and find out, and then I've got to go eat something. Because lunch was a little too early, because now I'm not in my normal time zone, but now I'm starving. So we're going to do some questions, and then it's just time. All right, so did I misunderstand when Tinsley, or did he say that the hearing that his cancer is terminal and that he needed to hurry? No. Okay, so there's two attorneys that had cancer. The attorney that Murdaugh was working with and Mark Tinsley. Mark Tinsley is in remission from what I understand from the 404 hearings, but he was stage 4. The other attorney was terminal and has since passed. So that is what was going on. They were trying to hurry because both attorneys were battling with cancer at the same time, but the other attorney was terminal. And so that's what that was. That's what was going on with that. Emily, why are they not on a timer like with Depp Heard? Look, this is why civil attorneys are on a fucking timer. Why are they not on a timer? Because we are in a criminal trial. That is why. So Did I finish my flight story? I did earlier today. Finish my flight story. Thank you for the warm wishes from Arizona. I am glad to be here. It seems that there's something going on that's not a Dave Matthews concert. I got to the airport and there was lots of sports ball fans. Are the Eagles in the Super Bowl? Is that why there were so many people in an Eagles jersey? The Eagles and the Chiefs? Those are the clothes people were in at the airport. The airport was very busy yesterday, and there's like Super Bowl shit all over the place. So it seems that there's sports ball happening, but there's a Dave Matthews concert, and that's what I'm here for. I'm leaving before the sports ball things. I need the jury to give each attorney a word limit for everything they do. They should be looking at the jury and reading them. I think they're also, look, I think this group of attorneys is so impressed with their own shit that they are all just taking up all of the oxygen in this courtroom. It's attorneys cross-examining attorneys and attorneys wanting to correct other attorneys. It is such a fucking mess of attorneys that they just can't find their way. They just can't find their way around anything. It's mess of a mess of a mess of a mess. But attorneys, dare I say, like to hear themselves talk. So, Missy W. said, if they exhume Gloria S. and she died of natural causes, will her sons have to give the money back? No. Will AM be charged with fraud? He has been, and he's already pled to it, and they've already settled the case. But no. The reason that Gloria Satterfield's son got money is not because the death was suspicious. It's because the death happened on the property. So they sued the property. This is part of the reason Alec didn't have an umbrella policy and insurance when it came to the boat case, because insurance had already paid out on the Gloria Satterfield accident. Insurance had paid out on that. He stole the money. The reason they ended up getting like over $6 million is because of the fuckery with stealing the money. But it's not because her death was suspicious circumstances. Accidental deaths can be charged, which is why if you have someone that comes and works in your home or is doing electrical work or whatever, you need to make sure they carry their own insurance and you have insurance, because people can trip on your stairs or fall off a ladder or whatever, and you can end up in a lawsuit even when no one did anything wrong and it is an accident. That's practical life advice, not legal advice. Gingy Problems. Okay, look, I sent my question about the GoFundMe before I heard Tinsley Gate. I thought it originated in the other group I'm in, LOL. Wife had surgery, she's fine, now she's shopping while high. It's been a day. Okay, Gingy Problems, make sure that your wife is not online shopping while on pain medications after surgery. Or lean in and just enjoy the nonsense and order some yodeling pickles. Wow, Buster hates Tinsley because he's the pressure cooker, which made his dad shoot his brother and mom. I don't know. Narcissistic viewpoint and right in line with why Alex could have done it. I think Buster hates Tinsley because Tinsley was going to burn their whole family to the ground for the beaches and sued Buster in addition. And Buster's like, what? Everybody gives their little brother their driver's license to make it look like they're 21 so they can buy booze when they're underage and driving their friends in boats. Avi. KD just said, I just hit 7 years cancer-free. Congratulations. The trauma that cancer causes alone is incredible. Yes. I can imagine having to fight for others while fighting for my own life as well. I want to hug him. And I think with that, it is a great place to say, Law Nerds, thank you for being here. I appreciate you. I am tired. You are tired. Tomorrow morning is going to be wild. The cross-examination of Tinsley is going to be fire. We are going to see quite a lot, and we're going to hear more about this GoFundMe. I bet you. I am waiting for that cross-examination tomorrow. And at some point, this is the last witness with the financial crimes, I think. Does that mean Cousin Eddie testifies tomorrow? I think yes. I think Cousin Eddie testifies tomorrow, and I am here for it, and I hope all of you are too. Tomorrow's going to be a fiery day in court. Court starts early. I will see you tomorrow morning at 8:25 Central Standard Time, 9:25 Eastern. Translate into all of your time zones. It's time to go. Y'all, thank you for being here. Thank you for being Law Nerds. I appreciate you. Today's been a fucking day. Let's go.
You can find all the Law Nerd goodies at lawnerdshop.com. Connect with me on social media at the Emily D. Baker. And don't forget to check out my podcasts, The Emily Show, and the new podcast, Quick Bits, summarizing everything I talk about on my Tuesday and Thursday live streams. You know, when you only have time for just the quick bits.